Hi, this is Harrison Matlock. I just want to welcome you all to the Family Financial Workshop. I just want to say today it's going to be one of the most amazing Zoom events in financial history. I grew up in the financial services business, but unfortunately, not everybody does. Luckily, the guy up next taught me a couple things. He just turned 60 last week. You might have of him from the radio. Let's welcome Roy Matlock.
All right. Thank you, Harry. And, today is a family financial workshop. And we term that because, I've heard this many, many times. I've been doing this type of stuff for going on 36 years now, helping people with their money, teaching them about, how to get out of debt and save money and invest their money and all that kind of stuff. And I have people all the time and that I sit down with, and maybe they're in their 30s or sometimes 40s or 50s, and they hear it and they're like, they should teach this stuff in high school. And I say, yeah, I agree with you, but they never do that. I don't know why, but personal finances right now probably became way more prevalent than ever before. After 2020, we found out that you really do need to be conservative. You really do need to have an emergency fund. You really do need to pay attention not only to what you how you earn money, what you do, but also you got to be very smart to be able to move along in the new post-pandemic almost their world. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to walk you through. I want to encourage you right now, if you're sitting there and you've got any kids out there that are teenagers or older, this is going to be all the way from basic finance all the way up to invest in your money. I would encourage you to get on the phone and say, hey, you need to get on this thing. And we sent you a link out. That link you can share. What would it be like to have your whole family tree fixed financially? A number of years ago, my mother was turning 95, and we were having a birthday party, and I started looking at my family. I've got three sisters, I have a brother, I have nieces and nephews. There's 5 generations of children. Right now, my mother's still living, getting ready to be 98. And I thought, all of my direct family, they started with me early on. They invested their money. They're in great shape. And some of the nieces, but then there's some that are out there in our family because it got so big that they haven't really been educated. So I did the first family financial workshop, and I invited all of my family to come out. We had 27 people show up, and I spent 2 hours and I taught them about money, because what I wanted to do was change my family tree and take it all the way down. And so today, that's what we're going to help you do. We're going to help you change your family tree. And so get ready. It's going to be fast paced. Get your notepad out. We're going to be giving you all kinds of great stuff. And so to start the day off, we have an incredible speaker. He's right outside. As a matter of fact, spent some time with him just recently. He has been a long-term friend of mine in the financial business for over probably 25 years. He's been in the business 30 years, right out of Richmond. Dean Francis, Dean and his wife Sarah have been helping people for many, many, many years. And so with that being said, what I want to do is I'm going to turn it over right now to Mr. Dean Francis. Dean, are you there?
I am. Thank you, Roy. Yes, pleasure and honor to be here with everybody today. Great decision, by the way, just to be on here today. I think many of you have heard the phrase that money is like children, it comes without instructions. And most of us start out quickly in life trying to ask people that seem like they know what they're doing. But just because you got a big house and a nice car actually doesn't mean you know anything. And so it's easy to make a lot of mistakes. I know for me, I can give you a little bit of hope. At age 21, I think I had $30,000 of credit card debt, and everything that you could do wrong, I did wrong. And so there's no doubt. I've looked at the lineup today, the outline, and what you have an opportunity to learn here today is absolutely incredible. For some, maybe a review of some fundamentals, and for others, you're just getting started. You could not be in a better place with the speakers and the quality of content that you're going to be walking through. So I want to have a little fun, though, to open up our day here together. And so I have asked Kristen, and I think I've got maybe a couple other volunteers that are going to help me out. You all are going to participate. Okay, so we
have Kristen and her husband Dan, and then of course Harry and myself. And so here we are.
Okay, good. Okay, so This is perfect, guys. Now, Kristen, Dan, Harry, Roy, I'm assuming you all know the alphabet. Did you head that nod? Okay, good, good. So I'm going to put up in just a second a sentence that you're going to read. And what I'm going to ask you to do is just to count the number of times you see the letter F as in Frank. So very simple, very simple exercise. Just, I'm going to put it up on the screen. You're going to have about 10 seconds. All I want you to do is kind of read it to yourself. And as you read it, I want you to count the number of times you see the letter F. And then I'm going to ask you how many you saw. Okay. Super simple, very easy, no pressure. I think, only 1,000 people watching you, or maybe actually, I think it's more like 2,000 people watching you. No pressure. Okay. All right. So here we go, guys. 10 seconds. Just read it to yourself. All right. Now, of course, everybody online, I'm assuming you're participating just as well. In fact, if you want, if we have a chat open, do you know, Kristen, do we have a chat open?
Let me see.
Okay. You can all, if there's a chat there, you can all post the number of times that you saw the letter F. Okay. And while you're doing that, though, we're going to see how our participants are doing. So now, Harry, you're probably the youngest, the brightest. How many times did you see the letter F?
It was 3, not including the one up top.
Of course. Yes. Yeah. Don't count the one up top. Good point. Okay. So three. All right. Kristen?
I counted 4.
4. How about that? Okay. Dan?
I only saw 3.
3. Okay. Roy, have you ever seen this sentence before?
Yes. So I'm not gonna.
Okay. So you won't come.
I'm gonna let them make the fool of
All
themselves.
right.
Okay. Okay. So, so 2 of you saw 3. 1 of you saw 4. Dan, no, see, Kristen, you saw 4. Okay. Now you have to admit, guys, this should be very simple, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just give you another, just another review. Okay. Kristen, you can see, just double check, Dan, Harry, I mean, is Kristen seeing something you don't? I mean, just to yourself, read it. You got 10 more seconds. Here we go. Ready? Okay, so let's come back over here to Harry. Harry, you saw 3 the first time. How many did you see this time?
I'm still seeing 3.
Okay, all right.
What?
Whoa. Okay, so Dan, you're holding up 3, right?
I don't get the joke yet. I only
Yeah.
see 3.
Okay, so Kristen, you went up to 5?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So Dan, Harry, you and I have a lot in common. Somebody showed this to me years ago, and they said, they said, Dean, listen, you see 3, but I'll pay you $10 if you can see more. And I'm like, and I looked at it again. They said, look, I'll pay you 20. It didn't matter how many times. Look, I saw 3. And so anyway, the answer is more than Kristen's. It's a total of 6. Now you're like, how could that be? Okay, no, just real quick. Can I just remind you guys how to spell the word of? Okay. All right. Take a look again.
You're kidding me.
Yes. And so I know you're asking yourself right now, how could I not see those? Well, it's interesting. It's because of the way your mind is programmed. See, every time you hear the word of, what letter do you hear?
B.
Yeah. And so you're so programmed to think V, the letter F can be right in front of your eyes and you don't see it.
Wow.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you for participating and helping us. So all of you online, I'm going to guess that many of you are probably in the same boat of these guys right here. And you might think, well, what does that have to do with money? Well, money is very similar. You can become so conditioned in things that you're seeing or hearing from other people, it actually affects your ability to see clearly. There could be things right in front of you that are so simple, but you just didn't know. And so really this workshop today is kind of like that friend that comes alongside and just points it out to you. And all of a sudden, you're doing so much better. So anyway, and it's important, right? Because when it comes to money, we definitely want to see clearly. You know, today, most people, they know what they want. It's usually defined like financial freedom. And what that might mean to one person might be something different for someone else. Most of us, when we think about our finances, we are actually thinking about our family, thinking about our kids, our parents, our spouse. And when you can really begin to eliminate that stress and to feel confident about your future, you can live so much more effectively today. I've heard it said that wealth is really just becoming free of financial worry. It's building enough savings and investments and so forth, and that there's just that worry goes away, and now you're able to really focus on what's most important, which I'm sure starts with family. So people know what they want, but they really are unclear how to get there. Most people just don't quite see it or see it inaccurately. Doesn't matter what you want to achieve, from long-term retirement to saving for college, maybe just getting debt paid off or having your life insurance, all these things that kind of come about. And most people that we talk to, they're typically already in their 30s, 40s, sometimes 50s when we first start working with them. And so often the most popular phrase is, I wish I would have known that years ago. Well, great job again being on this call here today, because you taking that time can make all the difference. I just also want to put things in perspective for you. If you're younger, things are very, very different today, very different than they were 30, 40 years ago. You know, back in the 1980s, the average grocery store had 7,000 items. Did you know the average grocery store today has 50,000 items? Now, if you're going to go shopping for groceries, you might say that's convenient, and I would agree. It's terrific. It's awesome. But when it comes to financial choices, that's not such a good thing. That can be overwhelming. This is a picture of my parents. See, my parents, they were school teachers. My mom taught elementary school. My dad taught high school math. And they did that for many, many years. And it was pretty simple. You know, as long as they didn't overspend, at the end of their working career, they both had a pension and they both had Social Security. And just the combination of those two things alone were so robust, they could live off of that. Now, they did save and invest some money too. But it was simple. Spend less than what you make, stay out of debt, and, you know, work hard. But, you know, for most people, guys, that's just kind of gone. Most people aren't going to have a pension anymore. Social Security here in the United States, you know, is becoming more and more risky. And so now I mean, saving and investing is gigantic. It's huge. And so taking time to understand is a big deal. And guessing, it really isn't a strategy, but I hate to say it, that is what happens to most people. You know, most people here in the United States admit to guessing when it comes to their 401k. Probably one of the most important things you do is selecting those mutual funds inside of a 401k or some kind of retirement account where you work, or maybe it's something you're doing on your own. And again, most people just guessing. And you know, here in the United States, I mentioned Social Security. I don't know if you've ever actually read your Social Security statement. You can go to socialsecurity.gov, and it's pretty easy to pull up. The last time I pulled it up, this is what it said. It's on the front. It's kind of like a warning label on a cigarette package. Your estimated benefits are based on current law. And it says the law governing benefit amounts may change because by the year 2035, the payroll taxes collected will be enough to only pay about 80% of scheduled benefits. Well, that's not good. And so the less you can depend on an employer and government, and the more you can learn to depend on yourself by making smart choices with your money, better off that you're going to do. By the way, most people, they do the same thing with life insurance. You know, most people, if you have a family, you think, oh, wow, yeah, life insurance, that would be important, wouldn't it? You know, somebody passes away and they haven't taken the time to make sure their life insurance was the right amount, and they had their will and estate plan, and you know, some basic things like that in place. Well, you don't get another chance. I mean, if that's not there, you're talking about a financial nightmare. It happens to so many people, and it's not always fun or exciting to think about, but it's critical. It's a big deal, and it's not something that you want to guess at. The average student loan debt, by the way, per college graduate is almost $40,000, and 40% of student loans, this is about a year ago when I last pulled that statistic, were in default. U.S. households with debt carry an average credit card balance of $15,000. In Canada, you guys you're a little bit better, but still, it's just easy. It's easy to find ourselves in too much debt, and then we're not saving enough. The cost of homes and college education have increased far faster than wages over the last 25 years. This is a big, big change to what it was like for my parents. Again, these costs keep going higher and higher, and wages typically don't go up as much. It makes you think, okay, where am I headed, you know, financially in my career? You know, is there a way I could earn maybe more income from home? Are there other opportunities I ought to also be considering to make sure you protect that income that ultimately funds your entire future? And of course, you can see the statistic down below. Most people really are paycheck to paycheck. And so one of my favorite workshops, which is really kind of what you're hearing today, the title I like to give it is The Lost Millionaire. And I'm just going to leave you with this here today. There's a millionaire in all of us. So if there's anybody out there today that you kind of think, man, being a millionaire, accumulating $1 million or $2 million of savings or investments, that just seems like a, you know, pipe dream. Well, it's in you. The challenge is it's just easy to get lost. And by being here today, you can find that path. You can know that you're making right choices. And what you're going to see here today is when you make a lot of right choices over a long period of time, magic happens. It's incredible. What you're going to hear here today is how to make your money work so one day you don't have to. That is the ultimate goal. So Roy, turn it back over to you.
Hey, thank you, Dean. And guys, we're going to get started now. You know, great setup for everything that we're doing. You know, what Dean said is if you make good choices, you get good outcomes. I've always said this, actions have consequences. And so if you start doing the right things, you'll start getting the right results. And the cool part about it is if you're in trouble right now and you've had some things happen, you know, maybe this last year was hard on you. The thing I've learned about helping people with their money, when they start making good decisions, you can get out of your mess much quicker than it took you to get in your mess. You know, a lot of times what we do is we just spend a little too much over a period of time and we get ourselves in trouble and then it hits us. But the good news is you can fix it quicker. And so what we're going to do to begin with is I'm going to introduce our next speaker. He's going to talk to you about a GPS. And what a GPS is, you know, if we get in the car, first thing we do is we say, where do we want to go? Okay, that's our goal. And we put in the address and then it says, okay, what's the plan? The plan is it says, well, go here, turn here, do this. And then the schedule is you'll arrive in 13 minutes. All right. And we do that every day. We live by that. GPS, and we call it a goal, a plan, a schedule. Well, wouldn't you want to have a financial GPS where you know you start here, you do this, and you end here? And so the next speaker coming up has been a good friend of mine for years and years, Josh Huffman. Josh is a Middle Tennessee guy. Matter of fact, went to the same high school as me, just a few years before me. And Josh has been in the financial business for 40 years. How about that? 40 years, full time, helping people with their money. And so Josh is he lives out in Texas. He's a Dallas Fort Worth guy, went to TCU. And so Josh is going to take over and he's going to talk to you about your FIN number. So Josh, you ready to roll there, buddy?
You betcha, Roy.
Hey, Josh. All right. Look at him. He's got his little red. You're looking good, man. I mean, got your little thing in there. There you go. Okay. I'm going to turn it over to you, man.
It's all smoke and mirrors, Roy. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And a big welcome to all of you who are joining us today via Zoom. My objective this morning really is to teach you a few key facts that are necessary, I believe, for you to reach your long-term goals and dreams financially. You know, the great thing about what you're going to see and what you're going to learn is that it makes sense. It's not math. It's just good, solid common sense. But it's like the great illustration that Dean shared with the F. We don't think about it. And if we're receiving poor information, or if we've never thought about it, it's easy to make mistakes. And so, you know, we've all heard the phrase. I'm going to share my screen with you right now. We've all heard the phrase. And right here, people don't plan to fail, they simply fail to plan. And the problem, quite honestly, is that people make decisions financially like they're putting a puzzle together, but they don't have a picture of the puzzle. And if you've ever tried to do that, it's very, very difficult. And these decisions they're not connected. There's no overriding plan or objective. They're just individual choices, because these financial institutions that typically we buy products from is only interested in one thing, and that is selling you a product. There is no GPS. And that is the solution, what Roy talked about. It is some type of financial needs analysis that literally will help you identify where you are, where you want to be, and what it's going to take to get you where you want to go. And that financial GPS is what we're really talking about, and how you determine the two really most critical factors in achieving long-term financial goals. Now, first, I like to say that if you were to graph the backbone of a family's financial plan, it's going to take on this configuration right here. And what we call this is the theory of decreasing responsibility. And this is what it looks like. And this is basically the chassis on which you build a successful financial future. And in understanding this, everyone starts at point A, that is dependent financially. Aren't most everybody out there dependent financially in our younger years upon our job, our income, our cash flow, right? But don't most people have an objective at some point in the future arriving at point B, which is financially independent. That point where we can comfortably live off our own savings, our own resources. That's the objective. And we all grew up with the saying, you can't hit a target you're not aiming at, right? If you don't know where you're going, you're probably not going to get there. Well, where we're all going is attempting to reach point B, becoming financially independent. And there are three factors that are going to determine whether you make that journey successfully or not. First is time. How many years do you have to accumulate the wealth to become financially secure? Second is money. How much can you save along the way? And third is rate of return. What is a realistic expectation that you could earn on your invested assets over this period of time? Now, the accumulation of wealth is what makes up the offensive part of your financial game plan. And the financial instruments that typically make up that offense start with your tax qualified plans, like your IRAs, your 401ks. If you're a teacher or in the medical profession, it's a 403b. But they're normally funded through a portfolio of mutual funds. Well, a financial plan is a lot, and objective is a lot like an athletic team. You got an offense, but you also got to have a defense. And the defense of a financial plan is made up by various insurance products. The function of insurance is to buy a family time. All insurance is a substitute for cash. If you've got plenty of cash, you really don't need the insurance. But the challenge is, as we live our lives, is that when we're starting out, we've got the least amount of savings because we're starting our careers. And yet that typically is when we begin to incur the greatest liabilities and responsibilities. That's when we start our families. We got our kiddos at home. That we begin to incur a great amount of debt. You buy a house, you got that mortgage, you furnish the house, you've got credit card debt, maybe you're still paying off student loans. Death of either of the breadwinners in this situation could cripple the economic well-being of a family. Now, every family is different. One of the questions I always ask a couple when I sit down is I look at the spouse and I say, tell me, are you working today out of necessity or out of choice? That is, if money were no object, would you prefer to be a stay-at-home mom with the children, or would you continue to pursue a career? Well, that answer is very critical, because if the person would continue to pursue a career, then the amount of death protection on each spouse should be enough to replace their income if they need both incomes to maintain the standard of living. But if that mother would prefer being home, then the amount of life insurance protection in the event of premature death must be sufficient enough for that family to maintain a standard of living that they choose with the loss of that spouse's income. Now, one of the things a lot of people don't think about, number one, if maybe the wife's not generating an income at home. Most families, they are now, but in some cases they're not, or they would choose to. They say, well, she's not generating an income, so I don't need to put any life insurance on my wife. Well, you got to think about, if you were paying somebody to nurture the kids, wash the clothes, clean the house, cook the food, and take care of everything at home, that costs a lot of money. So you always need a coverage on a stay-at-home spouse, regardless if they're generating an active cash flow or not, because that would be a loss of revenue. So that number, that amount is a very important amount. None of us plan on dying. I can testify. I lost a wife of almost 44 years in 2016 in an auto accident. I wasn't expecting that. It was devastating. But things happen. And with COVID going around, it is, people are concerned about that. So the amount of insurance protection that you put on a husband or a wife, it is critically important. Now, one of the things about this choice, however, is that life changes. We've got a big need for death protection when we're raising our families and have the debt and the mortgage. And kiddos get more expenses as they get older. You got car expenses. You've got car insurance expenses, uniforms if they're in sports, and all that. So you have a big need for an extended period of time. But eventually, hopefully, kids grow up. The debts are paid down, mortgages are reduced. At some point in the future, a family's need for life insurance begins to decrease radically as their need for cash and savings increases dramatically. There's an old point where at some point in time, the fear of dying too soon and leaving the family destitute is offset in the latter years by the threat of living too long and outliving your savings. And that's why that financial independence, we call it the FIN number, the financial independence number, is so critical. Again, if we don't know where we're going, we're probably not going to get there. And again, we can't hit a target if we're not aiming at one. And nailing down that FIN number is very important. And it is a specific amount of money based on your existing lifestyle. let's say, for example, that in determining your financial independence number, and again, this is so critical, that's the amount you need to accumulate that you can live off of for the rest of your life after you've factored in inflation. Let's say, for example, if you want to retire 30 years from today with $100,000 in today's money, after you factor in, say, a 3% inflation rate, and that's going to be about 2.5 to 3% per year compounded, 30 years from now, to buy $100,000 worth of goods and services will take you $243,000. So on a monthly basis, that monthly income need increases from $8,300 a month to over $20,000 a month, $20,250 to be specific. So how much money are you going to have to be saving along the way? Now, if you are down the road and closer to retirement and you haven't saved a significant amount of money, we have that financial independence number we can help show you how to come up with that through what we call a financial needs analysis. And that is what Roy was referring to when he talked about the financial GPS. It's a roadmap. And it will specifically show you, depending on the rates of return that your invested assets are growing at, it'll show you how much you have to save each month. But in that case, your FIN number is over $2 million, significantly more. To get there, you've got to invest $1,421 a month. That's about $355 a week. Now, again, if you're closer to retirement, you can reduce that monthly income need by the amount of Social Security that you're about to start receiving. And that would lower the amount. But to get to that number, you've got to do and gather some basic information. And that's what we're going to be covering with you today. The whole purpose of today is to provide you meaningful information that you can remember, that makes common sense to you. One of the challenges and one of the, I think, mistakes that a lot of people make is when they sit down with an insurance salesman, for example. They typically, what happened with me is that the individual said, Josh, you're starting your life now. We're going to get you started with a starter policy. And as your income grows, we're going to sell you more and more and more. So by the time you're 65, you'll have paid up life insurance for the rest of your life. Well, I'd never even thought about it. Number one, I really didn't need it when I bought it. I was single. No one was depending on me for income replacement. If no one needs if you're not generating revenue for someone to have dependents, it's questionable as to whether you need life insurance at that point or not. But I did what the individual told me, and I got married, started a family, and I was grossly underinsured during the first part of my married life. But I didn't know any better. It had never been explained to me. And so when I saw the theory of decreasing responsibility, and it just made total sense that I needed much more coverage in the early years. And it cost a whole lot less money than the wrong kind of life insurance that I had. So what we want you, when you leave here today, we want you feeling that you've learned something that it's beneficial and that you can immediately apply to help you get control of your finances and reach your financial goals and dreams. So Roy, I'm going to turn it back over to you. Thank you for allowing me to share. Hope this was meaningful information for you.
Hey, thank you, Josh. And guys, we are going to keep rolling here with great information like that. I want to do real quick, just let you know that if you would like to find out your FIN number, all you got to do is ask the person that sent you the link out, and they'll do what's called a financial needs analysis. It'll give you the exact amount of money that you need to know to reach your FIN. We'll take what you have, look at what you owe, we'll stick it into our little computer and print it out. And the next thing you know, you'll say, my FIN number is this amount right here, and I'm going to finish the job at this age. And so anyway, I would encourage you to reach back out to those people that invited you, and they can do what's called a financial needs analysis and get you your PIN number. Hey, now we're going to get into some of the stuff that really is the family type thing. And we've got two speakers coming up that both of them have been very successful in the family world. How about that? Okay, first off, I have Diana Carey. So, and John Peretz, okay? And these two are going to kind of tag team along from starting with small children up to your teenagers. We're going to talk about a family legacy, give you a little background. Diana has been married for 40 years, and she's got 2 grandbabies, and her kids are grown, and been 18 years helping people with their money. So you think about this, the people we're bringing in, 20 years, 30 years, all that kind of stuff to help you do it. So these are professionals that do it. And then I go to John. John has been in the business 17 years. He has been married 23 years. He's got a son that is 17, a daughter that's 22. And John's known for being a great teacher. And so with that being said, what we're going to do now is I'm going to turn it over to them. They're going to walk you through how to teach your kids about money. Take over.
Awesome, Roy. Well, thanks so much. Hey, everyone. Honored to be here. What a treat. And I do get the opportunity to teach on, how to speak to younger children. And I love the exercise that Dean did, just kind of, planting seeds on thinking. And, teaching younger children, I think for our family is incredibly important. I had the opportunity way back when, from the age of about 23 to 33 to work with middle and high school students. And I remember thinking that once children get to the high school age after teaching middle school for 4 years, I realized, man, middle school is kind of like your last opportunity to really make this huge impression before they get into high school and kind of start to bend the world to their way of thinking. So speaking to your younger children is just so incredibly important. And a lot of it has to do with just mindset, right? What are we saying? What are the things that we share that make an impression? So I'm going to jump here to our presentation, and let's talk about teaching kids about money. So the first is recognize the power of your words. How do we talk to our kids about money? So number one, actually, I'm going to do this really quick just to make sure I don't have that blocked. Perfect. Okay. Sorry about that. So number one, we have to be, as parents, a great role model for our children. And for us, and this was a big thing for me personally, background wise, didn't come from a lot of money. Money was always something that I watched our family be concerned about and struggling with. Our past for sure does not equal our future. Okay, our past limitations have no place in our present, and that's just for us as adults, but more importantly, or our children's. So recognize the power of our words. What we say, we really do create. So one of the things that we had to really pay attention to, that I found myself saying that I had grown up with, was, I can't afford it, or we can't afford it. Remove that from your vocabulary and start to teach our children how to think about money positively and how to get creative in earning it. And I'm going to share a couple of great stories, but one way to maybe reframe just how we say things is, if we say I can't afford it, then we're just in a perpetual state of not affording it, right? Maybe it's, at the present moment, that doesn't make sense right now. One of the things we learned as being business owners is everything is a cash flow challenge. And when things are a cash flow challenge, it just means that you don't have the cash flow right now. But when we say I can't afford it, that just means this is permanent. This is the way it is. And that's just not true. We can create, and we can teach our children to get creative. Also explain the difference between needs and wants. So when we're looking at things, maybe it's, hey, right now, this is what we need to do. What you're asking for is a want. And look at the next, teach them how to set goals and develop a plan to achieve that. And that's something that we really, when our children were little, we really shaped their minds. I'm going to give you a great story on how we did that and how that continues to pay dividends in our kids. So teach them how to set goals and then develop a plan to achieve it. So one of the things that we did with our kids is when they were, middle school, late elementary school, and everybody had an iPad or an iPod or that, this is before the phone did everything. But I remember, both of them wanted their iProducts. And what we said was, let's set a goal so that you can achieve that. And then their mind went into, okay, so the goal is to get an iPod as an example. Well, how can I get creative? How can I start to, create opportunities to pay me to do that? And we did that. And they have always hit their goal, because instead of saying yes or no, or I can't afford that, what really then happens is, okay, the question starts to become, how do I achieve that goal? And you would be shocked at how creative our children can be. And I think a lot of the limitations that we have as adults is because we just weren't, taught to be creative with money at an early stage. But if we can create, playtime, we can do that with money as well. And I think we got to encourage our children to do that. The great thing about today's seminar, today's webinar, is everything covered today can be taught to our children. It just needs to be simple. That's all. Everything we're going to talk about today, it just needs to be brought down a little bit simpler for younger children. So how do you get started? Well, the best place to start, right, is for our children to have money of their own. So let me share a really great story. Our children, when they were younger, came to us and they said, hey, we want an allowance. And I said, okay, what for? And they said, well, we want to have money. We want to be able to buy our own things. I said, that's awesome. What did you have in mind? So questions always get our children thinking. And I said, what did you have in mind? And they said, well, we could do the chores around the house and that would earn us an allowance. And I don't know why this came out of my mouth, but it's one of those life-defining moments for them, truly. I said, that's not going to work. I'm not going to pay you for your responsibilities as a person. Now, they were little. And literally I said, you got to come up with a better way. And that shaped them. They kind of left and said, okay. And we were living in a community where there was a lot of, dogs. And they said, well, why don't we'll walk dogs? And they created, with my wife, Trish, a dog walking business that made them literally well over $1,000. And they were dog walking and then dog sitting, but they created that. So teaching our children the best place to start is they have money of their own, right? Depending on how old our children are, they can mow lawns, they could dog walk, they could babysit. Okay, they can make extra money. What works is giving them opportunities to get creative, right? Folding your laundry or making your bed or, whatever. Those are responsibilities. We need to learn that as people, right? I think we can get creative on other ways to help them make money. And then the other thing that we did was any birthday money or monetary gifts that they got, we taught them how to use properly. Okay. So kids in business, right? If you're enterprising youngster or teen needs extra cash, doing odd jobs around the neighborhood is a great way to cultivate the entrepreneurial spirit and also pad their bank account, right? So can they do extra chores? Or, one of the things that we did was helping in our business. Okay, like our son Ethan would come to the office and he would shred. So instead of paying the way we looked at it is instead of hiring somebody to do these things, how do we bring our children into it so that they can do the things that we don't want to do? So outside of just the things that happen in the house, what are the things that maybe you could, as an adult, take off your plate and give to your children and incentivize them to earn extra income doing that? Babysitting, pet sitting, as I talked about, yard work, or any of those things, right? They get creative. Our daughter one time wanted to go on a mission trip, and we said, okay, well, we'll fund 50% of that. You've got to get creative and make the other 50%. So again, recognizing opportunities to help your kids get creative when it comes to earning money. And she knitted scarves and sold them. And I remember her saying, I need to raise $300. I don't know if I'm going to do that. And then we talked about setting a goal, and she had it in a week. And she wasn't asking for donations. She was saying, if you've helped me fund me to go on a mission trip, I will in turn make you this scarf. So it was teaching her how to get creative. And now today at 22, she's a newly college graduate and she's got an Etsy shop and she's always thinking about ways to get creative when it comes to making money. Okay, and then with birthday money and gift money, what we did early on, and we'll probably cover a lot of this in the investing section, but open up an investment account in your children's name. And as they make money, help them redirect part of it into their investment account. So we had those containers open for them. And whenever they got birthday money or gift money or whenever they made money, we always said, hey, make sure you put a portion of that into your investment account. And we would show them that and watch it growing, and an opportunity just to get their minds wrapped around creating and growing money. And then lastly, play games with them. Like Monopoly or Cash Flow, because both of those games really teach on how to think about money. It's funny because both games in our house, it's like a free-for-all now with late teens and early 20s, and all of us are really adults now in the house. It's fun. It's like no holds barred. And our son Ethan is just a monster at it. So, but we did these things early on with our children on how to help them start thinking about it. I cannot stress enough that the power of the mind and then the words that we use help to shape those young minds. And, my call to action with everyone here today is let's not perpetuate the past, right? Let's create right now a new future, because what we do with our children literally can transform our families for generations. So that's my section. What an honor to speak with you all. Diana, I'm going to pass it to you, and I know you're going to bring it home in a big way.
Thank you, John. And who better to be partnered and tag team with than John on this? And I love the testimonial that you just shared, because the success of your children was the conversation you had behind financial stewardship. And that's exactly what we're bringing home to you. So what John and I want you to do is get those kids out of the bedroom right now, get them off in front of that TV. I know it's Saturday morning, get them in front of you right now, because between John and myself, these nuggets that you're going to receive are invaluable. They're invaluable. So I'm going to go ahead and share some information with you guys that I believe that will really help bring home to our teenagers, right? Y'all know those ones that know everything, right? They know everything. Mom, it's not like that now. That's back in the day when those old people days, right? I don't think I'm old. I've been married for 40 years. I'm a child bride. I was a child bride, okay? But I want to share with you really on raising financially aware teenagers. See, the parental concern is that even young children can understand the basic concept. You heard John say it. He basically taught his children the bartering system, and they understood it. What did they do? They became entrepreneurs and said, okay, you're not going to give me the allowance. I'm going to go out and make my own, right? And they did it successfully. But 84% of teens are reporting they're looking to you, mom. They're looking to you, dad, for the information on how to manage money. Now, see, I'm a baby boomer. My parents brought us the concept that if you went out and got a good job and you saved your money, you will be okay. They didn't know anything about where to save it, so they sent us to the bank and we would put it in the bank. We never we're taught about the money would grow. We weren't expecting the money to grow, but 34% of the parents say that families' approach to financial matters, they don't discuss it. Now, the one thing my parents didn't do, they didn't discuss their money issues. They felt that was not our business, and so they didn't discuss it. But as you've seen with John, how the conversation of powerful financial stewardship can make a difference in your child's life. So you have to, John said it, needs and wants, right? I mean, the latest shoe is out, the latest device is out. I think they went from iPhone whatever to iPhone 12 within a millisecond. So now all of a sudden I got this phone, but 2 weeks later I want the 12. You have to basically understand the needs of wants. And the way that you do that is that you get really good at this concept. You teach them opportunity cost. Now, what is opportunity cost? Let's talk about that. Okay. John said he has two kids, and his son and his daughter. They come and they say, hey, we want to go to a concert tonight, and the concert is $70 per person. So he says, okay, well, if you really want to go, well, then what happens? The daughter gets a call from Mrs. Smith next door, and she says, "Hey, you know, I need a sitter, and if you come and sit for me, I'll pay you $40." Okay, and then his son basically gets a call from Mr. Johnson down the street, and he says, "Hey, I need to have my driveway shoveled from the snow, and if you come and do that for me, I'll pay you $40." So they go and they say, "Well, no, you know, Mrs. Smith, I can't do it. I'm going to a concert tonight." And the son says, "Mr. Johnson, I can't do it. I'm going to a concert tonight." And so they're thinking, "Okay, well, Dad, I'm only asking you for $70 to go to the concert." No, what you're actually giving up is an opportunity cost of $110. See, you gave up $40 to spend $70. You have to teach the children opportunity costs. Even as adults, I use opportunity costs. We should be using it, right? It's an invaluable lesson. And the reason why is because these marketing companies have gotten very savvy with our Gen Zs, guys. They have gotten very savvy at marketing them all their products. And so therefore you're going up against branding and financial literacy. And so they're not thinking about, you know, pretty much what's happening. Amazon is really good. Have you ever noticed that you'll search something on your phone and then you'll go to social media and what you search shows up in the sponsorship and you're wondering, like, how do they know that I just looked at Nike? How do they know I just looked at Kate Spade? They know that because they are gotten very, very clever and on not how to market, but who to market. Just think about it. A 2-year-old may not even know how to read, but they know when they see golden arches, they'll scream out the word from the car seat, McDonald's. My granddaughter was infamous of that, right? Can we go to McDonald's? You're right. Not even knowing A, B, C, D, E, F, G yet, but she knew McDonald's from the golden arches. Right? And she knows Chick-fil-A from the little chicken face. There's Chick-fil-A, right? Before she could even form a word, she could say Chick-fil-A. So they have gotten really clever at marketing to our youth. So we have to be the loudest voice in their ear of teaching them how money works. You have to teach them what money is. Money itself has no value. It's a bartering system. It gives you power there. So when you look at pretty much kids by nature, they don't inherit values when it comes to money. I inherit, like I said, what my parents did. I thought my mother's wallet was always overflowing. I thought my daddy's pockets were deep. So I pretty much didn't think when I walked in a room, I turned the light switch on. I don't know how the lights came on. They just happened to come on. But they don't realize that it takes money to keep livelihood going. So when they get to thinking, they haven't developed the mindset yet. Yes, my teenagers know everything, right? I get it, y'all. I get it. Y'all some superstars out there. But here's the thing that you don't know. You know everything and know nothing at the same time. And as parents, we are guiding them. And what we guide them when it comes to money is what we produce. You know, I tell my daughter all the time, I say, you know, I look at, when you look at children that are entitled, and the worst thing about an entitled child is they become an entitled adult, and the world hits them hard because they don't know. They develop attitudes about spending and saving by observing what the world is doing. So parents, you are their world. In the beginning, when it comes to finance, what you show them, what they see you do, children won't do what we say. They will do what we do. So we have to make sure that we are teaching them about money. When you look at it, college undergrads, they indicated that they needed more education and financial management. They're coming out with a degree with student loans, and the jobs may or may not be there, and they're getting frustrated. And they're wondering, like, how can I be such an awful person? Here's the thing. When it comes to anything that you learn, it's based on ignorance of not knowing. Like I said, I knew what my parents knew, and my parents only knew what their parents knew, and so on and so forth. So to be honest with you, they didn't know really a whole lot. But the thing is that we can break the cycle by making sure that we sit down and feel comfortable being transparent with the conversations we have. 64% would have liked to receive the information in high school. I know I would. I took a class called POD, Problems of Democracy. It taught us how to do a checkbook. He never stressed you had to have the money in the bank to write the check. He made us believe that we had the paper with our name on it. We had money. How crazy is that, right? But just think about how our children sometimes say things to us and we're like, are you kidding me? Kids get excited about spending money. It's not a problem when it comes to it, right? They are excited. I know how to spend money, Mom. You ain't got to tell me how to spend it, right? If John would have gave them that allowance, he would have no problems of where they were going to spend it. They would figure that part out. Even as adults, we know how to spend money. But the thing is, we become a product of the way that we're wired, right? Poor savings habits. Like he said, start them early. Start them early. You know, I always say, you know, instead of giving them a toy or something like that on their birthday, like for my grandchildren, they get money invested, right? Because I know that it may not look like something to them now, but I'm telling you, when they become of age, they will thank their Glammy for doing that, right? And then you have living beyond means. We all have been there at one point or another. And the thing is that it disrupts what we can have in our emergency fund. So when things happen, we turn to the wrong resources to fix them, or, you know, we're not prepared for retirement. So you have to instill those proper habits at an early age. Teens can make meaningful strides towards their retirement goals. Look at this. Let's assume that from age 10 to 18, your kid earns $2,000. Now, you just heard John say that his kids earned $1,000 and doing the dog walking. So if, you know, say they earn $2,000 doing little odd jobs, like, you know, maybe babysitting or part-time work, maybe they end up going to work for the Golden Arches and making it, right? But what happened if they invested that into a Roth IRA every year at 8%? Look at the difference that you have made in their life financially by just instilling. When I think it was Dean who said there is a millionaire in all of us, and it starts at the time when we are birthed. If we are great money stewards, see, it's not if we want to anymore. We must do it, because our Gen Zs, they came through 2008, 2009. They didn't know anything about that. They didn't know anything about foreclosures. They didn't even care about that. But the world was impacted by the pandemic, including them. They were yanked out of their classrooms and put at their house, and almost like on house arrest, right? To go to class at home. They couldn't go out. And when they had to go out, they had to be bundled up at the face. They now know, hey, the world is in a disruptive state, but I've got to make sure that the future is not that way. So when they get hit with the pandemic, they will tell the story of how they got through the pandemic, but financially, they will tell the story that they were waiting for stimulus checks. We don't have to, right? Look at what age 65 would have done for an 18-year-old that put $2,000 away a year, right? From 10 to 18. Look what it would have done, over $1 million. So here's the thing, Warren Buffett, the little brilliant little man here, he says, do not save what is left after spending, but spend what is left after saving. So you have to have those conversations. I think John stressed it enough. I can't stress it enough. The main takeaway today, if nothing else, is talk to your children about money and be transparent. And if you don't know, congratulate yourself for being here today. Congratulate yourself for learning the nuggets that you're going to learn today. And take those nuggets and start a redefined program in 2021 that's going to impact your family forever. This has been such an honor to talk to you guys today. And I pray that you basically have walked away with something powerful. If nothing else, you feel empowered to say, Johnny, you're not going to get that today, but you're going to have millions tomorrow. Thanks so much, Roy. Handing it back to you.
Hey, incredible job. I'm so excited. I mean, how good is this? I mean, great job, both you guys. And so these are, you know, I always, when we put this thing together, I've always told everybody, look, people are motivated if they're on here to begin with. I mean, the reason you're on this is because you're motivated to get it together. So let's teach something. And you know what? Great. I mean, incredible job. Great teaching. That's what it's all about. I do have a few key takeaways that I thought I would do before we get into the next segment. Made some notes and just some things. I had one of my clients tell me that, his daughter, he came home, his 13-year-old daughter, he came home, and this is a couple of weeks ago. And he said he came home and he looked around, lives down in Florida, and he looked around and he's like, where is she at? Okay. And then he goes out and finds out that the lawnmower's gone. Okay. And he's like, what the heck's going on? So he starts looking around and here she comes driving the lawnmower back. And he said, what were you doing? She says, well, I went and talked to the neighbor about cutting their grass and they let me cut the grass and they're paying me. He says, well, you've never cut grass. And she says, oh, I just Googled it. I watched a YouTube video. And I thought, okay, that's good. That's pretty good. All right. That's a good move. All right. A couple other things I thought that you might want to think about. Somebody will change your family tree. It might as well be you, right? When I was growing up, my father came from nothing and very conservative. And he went and started a business, ended up selling a business, paid both my grandmother's houses off. He was the one that changed the family tree. But I'll tell you one thing I learned from him was being conservative. And I would come in at night and I'd flip the light switch and the lights wouldn't work. I'm like, what's going on here? The lights are not working. And then I found out that I had left the lights on when I left in my bedroom. And so my dad just took the light bulbs. How about that? And so he's like, you're not going to be wasting money and leaving the lights on. And you know what, to this day, and that was when I was a kid, to this day, when I walk out of the house, I got to turn those lights off. I'm not going to waste that electricity. How about that? And so you learn things like that. You talked about an opportunity cost. Guys, opportunity cost is, in a nutshell, opportunity cost is the key to finances. Because what happens is what you spend today does not allow you to get the earnings growth or the opportunities later. So let's say I came to you and I said, hey, I'll give you $100,000, but you need to give me 10 right now. If you don't have the 10, you just lost 90. Right? You lost the 100 because you didn't have it. And he said, well, hold on a second. No. I was talking to a guy yesterday. He told me he was able to buy an apartment building with 150 units that didn't get finished, and 150 units. And he said, I was able to buy it for 1.2 million cash at auction. How about that? No cash, no 150 unit, great deal kind of thing. So you want to do that. I want to do a couple more things. I want to, again, talk about this, the teenagers. One of my clients, I've done business with the mom and dad and the grandparents. And then the 16-year-old was sitting there, had a job at Wendy's. He saved all of his Wendy's money. Fast forward probably 15 years later, I'm doing a financial seminar, and he stands up and he says, I just want to let you know that my money that we opened up and put into investments when I was 16 to 18 years old grew to over $30,000. And I just got through buying my first house and was able to take a portion of that and do it as a down payment. That's from a 16-year-old, 17, 18-year-old doing that. So you got to encourage that. So now let me give you a couple other things that you might want to think about. When my father passed away 6 years ago, he had made up his mind that he was going to set things in motion, all right, that would always continue forever. And so we worked together and we put together a trust. And what that trust does is it's all detailed. And I remember with him, he had that trust. He carried it around with him, okay, in his car. And if he had any ideas, he'd mark it up and he would do things like that. And so talk to your mom and dad. And if they don't have their affairs in order, all right, you need to partner with your children. If you're right now on this and you're at or near retirement, you've accumulated something, you need to be thinking about that. You need to be looking at, how am I going to continue the family tree? And the most important thing about the family tree is education. Now, I want to give you one last thing, and then we're going to go to our next speaker. Quick idea. All right. I don't know if you knew this, but you can open a mutual fund for $250, or as little as $50 a month. What I've done is I've encouraged most of my clients who have children, no matter what happens, to make sure that they get that one little account open. And then that way, all those Christmas money, all that money that's an allowance that you make them work for, give them money, whatever you're doing, we'll throw allowance out. But when they think of things, when they're earning money, what you want to be thinking about is, what are they going to do with it? Are they going to take it to the bank and get 0.1 of 1%? Or would they be better off investing it? So if you open that up, once it's open, they can send 20 bucks in, 50 bucks in, whatever it may be. And I remember years ago doing that with my kids, showing them how they could have their own mutual fund and do some stuff like that. And I even did some matching funds. If they saved, I added money to it as well. So, hey, next up, we are going to have just more great information. We are in the middle of starting building the foundation. And next up, we have Aaron Fisher. Now, let me give you a little bit about Aaron. Aaron has been around for 14 years. And we could have probably had him teach about the kids. He's got 10, a 4, and a 2-year-old. So he's got a lot of financial teaching ahead. And what he's going to be doing, he's right up in Pennsylvania. And another guy that is a great teacher, he's going to take you through the beginning stages of building your financial house. Aaron, you ready to roll?
I am, Roy. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Knock it out. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, my objective, guys, is really to teach on building the foundation and understanding of what I like to call the blueprint of a financial house. And so when we build a house, I've spent some time, my college years, I put myself through college being a roofer. All right. So I was up there on the roof, but there would be no roof if there wasn't a foundation, So do we start with the 3rd floor or do we start with the 1st floor? Do we start with the roof? Do we start with the foundation? And so when we look at the blueprints of building a financial house, and I'm going to pull that up here for us, if you can see the screen. When we look at that blueprint, we want to focus our gaze on the foundation, but obviously, we want the entire house. And, we want what the top says, financial independence. Being that this is a family financial workshop, we want family financial independence. Generation to generation investments, generation to generation wealth. And so when we look at this, the foundation, income replacement, then having a good cash flow plan, will and estate plan, credit card debt free, 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund, retirement savings, that's the accumulation phase, college savings, the 529s, accelerating our mortgage. And then we're out now the withdrawal phase, retirement income, generation to generation investment. And when you look at that, you can say, okay, well, Aaron, I'm doing some of those things. Well, fantastic. Maybe you say, well, I really don't know where I'm at. And so when we look at building a house, when we want to add an addition to it, we can make improvements to our house. There's always going to be a home inspection report that we want to kind of go through. And so when I look at the financial house home inspection, ask yourself, answer the questions that I'm going to ask. First question is, do you want to leave an inheritance to your family? Right? Yes or no? Do you have a retirement income strategy? What age would you be mortgage free? Do you know that? Are you saving for your children's higher education? Do you know your financial independence number? Josh talked about that. Your FIN, your financial independence number. That was a game changer for me. My grandfather taught me how to work hard. My father taught me how to work hard. But unfortunately, we never talked about money. And so I saw the value of money. My mother passed away when I was 15. I saw the value of life insurance. And so my dad was a widower at 34 years old, raising 4 kids. And so I knew you get life insurance, but we never really talked about what kind. I think Tommy Lee will be coming up and talking about that. But it wasn't until a buddy came to me around 25 years old and asked me the question, do you know your financial independence number? And I said, Ben, I have no clue what you're talking about. And that really changed my whole journey. It changed everything I thought about money as he taught me through that. And so that's a great question. Do you know your financial independence number? How many months of emergency money do you have? Do you know your current debt freedom age? Do you have a will? Do you have a budget? And then do you have enough life insurance to replace your income in the event of a premature death? And so as you kind of go through that, if you have a scratch paper and pen, you may have walked through yes, no, yes. Well, I'm working on that. I get a lot of, how many months of emergency money do you have? Well, I had one, but the pandemic 2020, well, that's great. I mean, at least you had one, right? And it may be gone. You may be working it back on, but imagine if you didn't have one. And so when you look at this foundation, you say, how do I answer, I have some no's here. I'd like to make some improvements on it. So you ask yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your desire to achieve financial independence? You say, well, it's a strong desire. It's a 10. Well, do you currently have a written plan to get there? Now, I think the key word is a written plan. Well, I've got a plan. Well, where's the plan? Well, it's in my head. Well, we've got to get the plan on paper, right? I think it's so important to write things down and then execute the plan. And then would you want one if it were free? And Josh talked about, the financial needs analysis. And all a financial needs analysis is just, it's a GPS for your money, right? We all know how a GPS works in our car, but we really need one for our money, where we're at, where we want to go. We understand that there are things that come around that cause us to detour. And if you find yourself, not knowing some of the answers to those questions, get back with the person, I would say, that invited you here, get those questions answered. Or you say, what, I'm doing some things right, but hey, I'm always open to see how I can do better. I mean, I think, we put additions on our homes. We make improvements to our homes. There's nothing wrong with wanting to make it look better. And so as you go through the financial needs analysis and you look at this, financial house, we look at this goal, the foundation. That is the foundation where we start. We have to have a plan. The goal should be to have a plan to replace the income you earn and to protect those that you love and depend on. Because what would happen to your family when your income stops, but the bills don't stop? When the income disappears, when my mom's income disappeared, and it's a 2-income family, well, do the bills stop? The answer is no. And without a proper goal and plan, well, the rest of the house crumbles. Everything else we talk about, everything that we want, these goals get put on hold, or they disappear, or they just completely crumble down. The goal with the cash flow plan and getting a budget, have a control to spending, control spending, avoid impulse purchases and wasting money. The goal to having a will and estate plan, avoid probate. Avoid the family feuds because, going back to probate, that's costly, it's time consuming, and it's public, right? You need to name guardians for your minors. You need to have make a living will, select a power of attorney, get out of credit card debt, become debt free. The goal is to destroy the financial cancer as it robs your ability to invest and create wealth for yourself and for your future generations. The goal of accumulated retirement savings, protect your retirement savings from ever being used for anything other than retirement, and to prevent you from going into deeper and credit card debt. Reach your fin, be totally financially free, right? Financial independence, that you've known your financial independence number there, to have well-educated and debt-free kids. That's the college savings, the 529s. We all love our children. We want to do as much for them as possible. And, but being able to save for them there is a great gift to be able to give. To accelerate your mortgage, to go have no rent or mortgage payments after retirement. And then in retirement, when you're in the withdrawal phase, to never run out of money before you die. I think that is the number one fear that people have in retirement, is running out of money before they die. And then when it comes to generation investments, develop a family tradition of financial success and independence. And so so Aaron, that looks great. I want that. Those are all my goals. I want to get started, but where do I get the money? Where do I get the money to get started? How do I do all these things? I think the problem is that most people, have too much money left at the end of the month, right? The solution is no matter what your income is, you can find money to save. There's always areas we can save. And so these are Aaron's top 10 areas to free up money and save. Number one is you got to establish a cash flow plan. That's kind of a fancy word to hide the word budget. The word budget seems to be a constricting word, right? But you got to establish a cash flow plan. You got to pay yourself first. We already heard that. It's so important to put yourself at the front of the line, right? Put a savings plan together. Number three, avoid that credit card trap. Man, compound interest is a powerful thing. But when compound interest is working against you, it's going the opposite direction. It is so hard to win the money game. Adjust your lifestyle, adjust your priorities. That's a look in the mirror type thing. Great book, Michael Bach, Automatic Millionaire. He talks about the latte factor with adjusting your priorities. Number six, check your monthly subscriptions. Hey, there's a lot of things we sign up for that's $5 here, $10 there, and we may not even be using it. So comb through your bank statements, look through all your statements, see what are things I'm spending on that I signed up for that doesn't need to be there anymore. Check your insurance rates. Go if it's been a while for your auto and home, maybe look at your life insurance, check those rates. You can find some savings there. Realign your assets, maybe sell something. We've got all that technology online to be able to Facebook, Marketplace, eBay, Craigslist, all these things. You can realign your assets. Just your W-4. That's another good one. Are you giving too much to the IRS, right? Get with your tax person and talk about your W-4. And number 10 is earn some extra income. Maybe you've got a hobby that you can turn into some cash flow. Maybe you can develop get some professional licenses and be able to do something on the side. I think the new buzzword is to create a side hustle, a side income. And so these are ways, if we get creative, that we can find the money so that we can put towards building our financial house and making sure that it is strong from the bottom to the top, and that we create generational wealth that we can transfer to our children. And so, Roy, thanks for the opportunity. I'm going to turn it on back over to you.
All right, thank you. Great job. And I was sitting here listening to what Aaron, all these guys, and gals have been doing. They're so professional, and the reason they're professional is because they care. And I think the most important thing you can do in life is put together a team of people that will help you be successful. I believe in coaches. I believe that if I want to get good at something, what I want to do is find somebody that's great at it, get them to teach me. So over my lifetime, I started working on putting together a team of people. And your team's made up of your doctor, your lawyer, your CPA, your accountant, your pastor. You might be, if you want to work out, you get somebody to help you do those kind of things. So I have a question for you. Do you think, after listening to what Aaron just said, all those questions, do you think if you were working with someone like him or any of the independent reps that invited you out, to this event, do you think you would be better off? And if so, let us be part of your professional team, all right, that you put together to help you get yourself financially independent. That's what we do. And so what we're going to do is continue now, and we're going to roll into going through how this foundation works. We're going to start with the defense, then we're going to go to the offense. We're going to get into investments. We got all types of things out here to come. And this next speaker that's coming up, we can call him Tommy Excited Lee. How about that? Okay. So we're going to do that. Let me give you a little idea about Tommy. He's been helping families for 27 years in the financial services business. Started out in New Jersey, moved out to Southern California. And Tommy, let's see here. So Tommy, how long has Tommy been married? He's been married a long time. I know that. All right, Tommy, he didn't tell me how long he's been married. He can tell you that, but he lives out in Orange County and has one daughter, Skylar. And so with that, Tommy's going to take over, take your notes. This is the beginning of the foundation. Tommy, you ready to roll?
I'm ready, buddy.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
What a great meeting so far, man. Aaron, you did a great job. John, Diane, Josh, all of you, just an amazing job. So as I'm listening to this, I'm sitting here saying, man, we have a lot of people on here. I just want, and I heard Aaron say, win the money game. That's really what this is all about, and the good news is, no matter how much information you get today, you don't have to do it alone, okay? You got people that are on here that will help guide you. And so don't feel overwhelmed. I mean, a lot of this information, take the notes. I see it's being recorded too, so you could go back to it. But there's so many people on this call here that are advisors that can help you put the puzzle together. So you don't have to do it alone. A lot on offense and defense. So these are going to be some of the subjects of, some of it is going to be repetitive, but it's that important. We need to repeat and we need to, build that foundation, offense, defense. So if you're taking notes, like just jot things down. Is this an offensive strategy or is this a defensive strategy? How does this fit into my life? And just, do self-evaluation along the way. Like, how well am I doing in this area? Have I thought of this? Because there's going to be a lot of holes that you may be seeing. But the good news is today's a chance for you to say, you know what? I can fix these holes, okay? And it may not be immediate, but if you don't know what the holes are, you could be going in that boat across the Pacific Ocean and you wonder why your boat is sinking. These are just such critical pieces of the puzzle. They're simple, but and sometimes you're on this call, you're going to be on for 2-3 hours. It's not that difficult once you just keep trucking along and just making the progress. But financial awareness, you're going to be a lot more aware of your money today after this is done. Make it a game. Make it where it becomes fun, not where it's like, you hear that word budget, you're like, oh God, I don't want a budget. Well, what if you were debt-free? How great would your life be if you were completely debt-free? We look at our budget all the time and it's exciting because if you have all your bills paid already and then you're going into the month and you don't have debt and you don't have all these things that are hindering your financial well-being, it makes life a lot more fun, a lot more exciting. So let me get into this about just some of the ideas of protection and budget and everything else. So hold on one second here. And let me see if I'm up here. Okay. So the first, can you see that, Roy? You're good?
You look good.
Okay. So great. So income protection. Okay. This is one of the most important areas, of our life. Two things can happen. Okay. You could die too soon, which, that happens to some people, or you can live too long. And when I say live too long, it's live too long and run out of money, okay? So you saw this slide earlier. Josh had this slide here. In the early years, you may need a lot of life insurance coverage, okay? You have young family, you have spouse, you have financial responsibilities. In the early years, we may not have a lot of money saved. That changes over time. You start hitting your 50s and 60s and you start getting your debts paid down and your need for life insurance goes down because you should have a good amount of money saved at that point, less debts, and now your kids are grown up and less responsibilities as you get later, hopefully, that your kids actually do save money and start being responsible and moving out, right? So there it is there. You say, when you hit them retirement years, not saying you won't need any life insurance at all, but you shouldn't. If you have, I love what Josh said before, it's really a temporary thing. You're really pretty much having life insurance until you have the money saved. Okay, so that's really the way life works here. Die too soon. We've had many people pass away too early. You're seeing that with COVID. It's a sad thing. More sad is if they die too soon and they have no life insurance, and then they have not really a lot of savings. What do they do if they lose that income? That income doesn't come in for the next 20 to 30 years. So the numbers, like 50% of people don't have life insurance. And then the other 50% of people have it on the job, but it's almost like 90% of them are way underinsured. There's a $20 trillion deficit on life insurance in North America. 20 trillion. It's almost $500,000 per house is short on life insurance. So live too long, hey, live long and have money. Then you don't need, if you had $3 or $4 or $5 million saved, I don't really think you're going to say, well, I really need life insurance at that point, because you self-insured yourself, right? So what is life insurance for? Okay. Life insurance is the foundation of your financial plan in the beginning stages until you have the financial assets saved. But in the very beginning, the big need is life insurance really protects the income. And my wife does not work outside the house, but if God forbid something ever happened to her, I would definitely, she has an economic value to our household that is just, it is necessary. You need to have a good amount of life insurance in place. Your income provides for the expenses for your family. Life insurance provides a lump sum to replace the future earnings that someone would earn. Life insurance is one of the best, it's the fastest way to have a tax-free asset. The death benefit is completely tax-free. So someone doesn't have to pay on $1 million. It's 100% $1 million. I mean, they get to do whatever they want with that money, okay? And that's powerful. The goal is one day to be self-insured with savings, investments at the time where you won't need the life insurance. When our insurance comes to the end of the term, we're not going to need it, but I might end up keeping it anyway. It's still an inexpensive extra $1 million or $1.5 million at the end of the term that we can convert it into. So here we go. Term versus cash value. Now, this is something that you could take some notes on because it's powerful. The industry, most of the life insurance guys out there are, if they sit with you, they're going to really tune into the cash value type, the whole life. Sell it as not only a life insurance policy, but a way to save money. And it looks good when you start looking at it, but when you start like taking the layers apart of it and really understanding how it works, it really becomes not a real good economic value for a family. So you tell me if this makes sense. You have $200,000 of coverage each, and it's $450 a month on a cash value. It's a whole life, universal, variable. There's like about 85 different names for this type of insurance. You pay a decent premium, $450 a month, and you have decent amount of coverage, and it builds up a savings. It looks like it's like a retirement plan. They actually sell it as a tax shelter that you can save money, and then you can take the money out tax-free. So I've heard a lot of life insurance people tell them overfund the life insurance. You can pay an extra $1,000 a month into this, and it's going to be a great tax advantage for you. Nothing could be further from the truth of that. The cash value that's built up in this, it looks like if God forbid either one of them died, that you would get two things. You're paying into two things, life insurance and savings. So you're bundling it together. And it looks like, if someone dies, they would get the life insurance and the cash value. If you pay into two things, if you die, shouldn't we get two things as the beneficiary? Yeah, well, what if you found out that if your spouse died, that the 200,000 would be paid, but all the cash value would be reverted back to the insurance company upon death? Okay, who's that good for? That's good for the life insurance company. Now, my father passed away about the same time as Roy, about 6 years ago now. Had 7 of these policies when I came into the financial business, okay? And I did not know what he paid into, but he paid into it for 38 years and only had about $10,000 or $15,000 of cash value in there. And it was just like, oh my gosh, like another way you can get the money out of the cash value is you could borrow your own money and pay interest. So you can borrow, let's say you borrow 10 or 15,000 out, you'll pay 8% interest, 6 or 8. It decreases the death benefit, and then it increases your premiums because now you're borrowing your own money and paying interest on it. So, and then if you die, so if you could take all the cash out, you would lose your policy, and if you die, you lose the cash value. So it's a real backwards program. There's a much better way of doing it that you could take the same 450. And we believe in buying term insurance. It's a lot less expensive. If you're in your 30s, you can get a 30-year term or even we have a 35-year term and pay a lot less, $189 a month for 800,000. A lot better benefit on the primary, the main breadwinner. And then you have 400,000, which is double what the other spouse had before. That's a $1.2 million death benefit, and you're paying less than half the premium. And then we believe that you should go outside to your IRAs or your 401k or defined benefit plan, where you can now invest the difference. Even if you got a 9% return, that would be over almost $700,000. So if, God forbid, either of them died, they would get both. They would get the 800,000 plus the 7. That's a 1.5 million versus on the cash value side of things, you would only get one or the other. Okay, so you're just so much better off by buying term and investing the difference because you have control over the money. You're not bundling it together. If you take the money out, you don't have to borrow your money. So this is just basic concept, but cash value life insurance is just such an overpriced way of doing things. And if you have that, there is a way to replace it. If you don't have any, we would be talking to you about getting a term policy in place for yourself and your family. And that's which one would you want, A or B? So hopefully you pick B. Find out where your money should be going. Okay, this is just overall, your household. A lot of times people don't know how much am I spending on taxes, insurance, savings. When we do a financial needs analysis, which is just tremendous, I mean, it just gives you the snapshot of everything, where you're at, where the problems are, almost like getting a financial x-ray. And when you get the x-ray, now we can go back and start fixing some of the areas, maybe reducing taxes or reducing insurance costs, increasing your savings. If you ask the average person, what percentage of your money are you saving? They don't even know, okay? If you ask them, how can you reduce your taxes? They don't know. We have so many ways and strategies that can show a family how they could pay less taxes, increase their coverages. It's amazing what we do and the value that we provide, but you got to know where you're at first. And then you start looking at the idea, an idea of a budget and your monthly income divided, throughout these areas. But then we get into the details of budgeting. Okay, so what's some of the tips and why is a budget so powerful? Okay, couple things to do. Take an honest appraisal of what you're spending. Okay, it's good to have where your income is at, but the problem becomes when your income is here and your expenses go past the income, where now you're spending more than you're making. People don't really have an honest idea of how much they're spending. So here's a good idea. Just look at every single bill that you have, okay? spend some time and just say, well, how could I cut this cost? I mean, I called my cell phone company and I found out I was paying an extra, I think it was almost $75 a month for insurance that I should have been paying a lot less. And I ended up saving, I think it was like close to $140 a month just by getting on the phone. I mean, $140 a month on my cell phone bills. I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, if you went through every single bill, yeah, I see people playing the lottery. I had one client that we did a budget and he said, well, I do $12 a day. I think it was 6 days a week. And I figured it out. He was spending $244 a month on lotto. I said, my God, if you just gave me the $244 a month and we invested it, in 20 years, I think it was going to be like $800,000. There's your lottery, right? I mean, so, you know, just reducing those expenses down and you know, making your life a lot better. Do your best to eliminate as many monthly bills as possible, you know, because it's all about the cash flow and cash flow in and cash flow out, you know. There may be ways that you could pay a bill annually and just reduce that bill down or just get rid of the bill. If you have a debt, we'll go through debt elimination. But, you know, here's a big one. Take 2 weeks and just write every single thing down. Every time you spend money, just write it down, you know, write it down because you won't even believe where you're spending money. You might be going to the coffee shop every day, $5 a day. I mean, people get a latte, $5 a day, but they can't save a couple $100 a month. I mean, to fund their IRA. I mean, most people are not fully funding their IRA. So why? Because they're spending money everywhere else, you know. Carry small amounts of cash on you or no cash, you know. Ask yourself, do I want this or do I need this? And just start getting aware of, you know, your own personal budget. So here's just, you know, we have many different budget sheets. Actually, we can get you a copy of a budget sheet for you to work on yourself. You know, part of this, just contact the person that invited you on here. But I think one of the most important things that someone can do is really fine tune their budget because you won't believe where you're overspending on money, and just, you know, make it a game. You know, it's fun when you start putting more money in your pocket and you start building your emergency account and you start feeling a lot better about your finances. You know, I don't know if most people don't have over $50,000 to $100,000 in an emergency account, you know. Imagine if you had that, if you had just had 100,000 sitting there just in case an emergency happens, you know. But you know, you won't get there if you're just letting your spending go wild. So once you fix the budget, now we go towards, you know, all right, well, what are we going to do with the money that we're saving here? Well, these are just 3 accounts. Set up a real emergency account, you know, money market account, short-term savings. You know, you have some, you know, municipal bond funds, things like that you can get a better rate of return than the bank, but you could sort of, you know, save that money where you're going to get a better rate of return. You can get that money out in the short term, maybe 5 or 10 years. And then your long-term savings for retirement, you know, your IRAs, your 401ks, your, if you're self-employed, you know, you can get yourself set up with a solo 401k. You know, there's a lot of things you could do. You know, for tax shelters, there's variable annuities and all kinds of things. But if you don't have the account set up, if that account number is not set up, I would guarantee it's not going to get funded, you know? So you really just got to get how serious are you about just fixing the finances and just working on it, you know? Work on it, check in with it. I mean, at least once a quarter. I mean, but you should be looking at your stuff every month. Benefits of an emergency fund keeps you from going deeper into debt, right? When you have a decent amount of money saved, it empowers you. You feel like, all right, I have control. Something happens, I'm okay. When you have limited amounts of money saved, you get anxiety. You have more problems come when you have less money. It's proven fact that people that have money saved are healthier, okay? They think healthier, they worry less, and I think that's where everybody wants to get to, and that's probably why you're on this call, that you want to just get ahead. provides security, reduces stress and worry, allows you to purchase things cash instead of always having to say, all right, let's budget that. Well, if you're just saving money all the time, you just give me and say, you know what, just buy that cash, or maybe you buy it and you're able to pay it off in a short time instead of stretching that out over the next 5 years. Allows you to make better decisions, creates more investment opportunities. I mean, when you have money saved, things just sort of flow to you. It's like almost like this magnetic force, you know? And I love what John was talking about, and having your kids learn how to make money. I mean, and we've done that with our daughter. Our daughter's an entrepreneur. She's got her own YouTube channel. YouTube pays her every month. It's got all these things going, and she's had it going since she's 15. And it's so fun to see that she's creating income and building her network. And she's gunning to get 10,000 people to follow her and all this stuff, and putting out videos. And it's fun to involve your family and your kids and watch them do things that, you know, maybe you weren't doing. You know, maybe you were out doing something else, right? Like playing in the woods or something like that. Now we're about teaching people how to, you know, have survival skills that they can make it through anything. How much money should we have in emergency? Well, every single check that comes in, what if you save 9 to 15% of every single check, and it just automatically went right into an investment, right into some in the money market, some in your funds, your short term? What about having 6 to 9 months fully just sitting there just in case? Man, how great will you feel? Like I said, you don't have to do it alone. We're talking about you winning the money game, right? Use a money market account, not just a bank account. Bank accounts are just too easy to access that money. A money market, you sort of have a little bit of, you know, you can get a checkbook with it, but, you know, 50 to 100,000 would be good for most people. You know, I mean, some people need more than that. I mean, but I think that most people, if they had 50 to 100,000 just sitting in an account that just, again, well, if you don't have that, you got to set a goal. The financial needs analysis allows us to set those goals, right? Last thing here is just, you know, debt elimination. How do you become debt free when you got, you know, if you're in the muck of having all these debts? Okay, we're fortunate that we've been debt free for a decent amount of time now. I think almost 8 years, completely debt free. I love having no debt. Okay, retail credit card. So you're paying, you pay one card. When that, and you accelerate that, get that paid off. So here's what we do. Card number 2 here is you're paying $353. Well, when card 1 is paid off, you'll take the $220 and apply it to the $353. And every other bill, you don't add 1 penny to it. No, 0. Just you concentrate on one bill at a time, and you get rid of that bill. But once that bill is done, you take that money and apply it on top of the second card and accelerate it. And inside our financial needs analysis, it will show you the acceleration of the debt. In this case, without the debt stacking program, they were going to be in debt for 23 years. With the debt stacking program, it knocked off 14 years of debt, okay? It saved them $130,000 of interest. And now when they're debt free, if they continue to save the $2,700 a month in an investment account at 9% when they hit 67, it's only an extra $2.4 million saved. How about that? How would you feel if that was you, right? So there's the final slide here, just showing that the debt stacking concept. And like I said, these are just 3 areas that I think are critical. And just getting on that path will make you feel so much better. You know, knowing that you have a plan, okay? A plan, here's the thing, what I would say, what we have with this group of people and with the advisors that are on this call, we have a plan, we have a coach, and we have a company that together we can help wrap any one of you into the plan and fix your finances once and for all and get you on track to be completely debt-free, properly protected, and financially independent. And I'll turn it back over to you, Roy.
All right, Tommy, thank you. And, I listen again, I pick up stuff. I like to give you some key takeaways and just give you a little background. Back in the days, I've been doing this for 35 years. And when I first got involved in the financial business, the first thing I wanted to do was get my finances in order myself. And I started looking back, I used to get motivated by spending money. So therefore I was in debt. And I figured out that, debt was killing me. And I figured out that, I was always operating in a crisis because things would happen and I would prepare for them and all that. And so I made a decision that I was going to set a budget up. And when I set that budget up, I really started studying how to set a budget up. I didn't just set it up. I was in the business of helping people and I needed to be great myself. I needed to be an example. So I started working on my budget. The interesting thing about my budget, when I started doing that, I started getting way less stress, as we talked about. But what I was able to do was able to live less on less money than I was earning. And when I started doing that, it's very simple, guys. If there's a gap between your income and your expenses, you will eventually accumulate money, get out of debt, and do everything. And so I want to encourage you to plug into some of our educational series that will help you do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a couple things that you can do that might help you. The first one is we have a 13-part course. It begins with an introduction to money. These things that we're doing today are just highlights of what we do. It's free. It's delivered by Zoom. We do this and it's on Monday night and Thursday nights. And we do this live, the introduction, and then we're going to deliver to you 12 more 45 to 50-minute courses where we dig into it. I mean, really dig into it. So I would encourage you to do that. Ask the person that invited you or sent you the invite here to send you a link where you can sign up for that. You attend the first course, the rest of them will come to you over the next 30 days. You can watch them at your leisure. That's the first thing that I would look at. You can also have a download that they can send you for a budget form, where that form that Tommy went over, you can go right through it. They will you can get that. They can send that as well. So all of these things, we have resources that allow you to do that. And then the last part, I do a radio show in Nashville, and in that radio show, my theme is you've got one of two problems. If you're not financially moving in the right direction, you got one of two problems. Number one, you're just not making enough money in order to move forward. Or number two, the money you're making, you're spending it poorly, or you're spending more than you make. I'll give you a perfect example. If you're making 90 grand a year and you spend 95, you're going to be unhappy. It's not going to work. All right. But if you're spending 90 and you get your expenses down to 70 and you're saving 20 grand, you're like, man, this is great. And then you take your income from 90 to 110, and now you're saving 40 grand. You're like, wow, life is good. So I would encourage you to to check into that money series. And then immediately following that, we have an opportunity for people like you and me. This is how I got involved. I got excited about getting my finances fixed, and then I got my license. We have available to you a chance if you want to become a financial advisor and get licensed to be able to help people, have your little side hustle to go along with that. So I want to encourage you to reach back out to those people. Now, we're going to continue. We've got now the fun stuff. This is about moving forward. Okay. And what I mean by moving forward, this is the offense. And in this series, or these next few parts, we're going to be talking to you about how money works, how to invest money, how compound interest works, how to really start moving forward. We're also going to cover retirement plans and, how to save for your children's college. So you want to stay with us, stay tuned. I've got two incredible speakers that are going to be covering this. And I want to give you a little background. First up, right out of Cincinnati, Chuck Futel. Chuck and I literally go back, 25, 30 years. He's been a financial advisor for 35 years. He's married, has 3 adult children. He's already got them raised. And Chuck's going to kick it off. And then right after that, we have Stephanie Dorman. Now, Stephanie has been in the business for almost 25 years. How about that? 25 years. So you got 35 and 25 years of experience helping people. She's all the way out in Washington. And I guess it's called Belfair Washington, and with her husband and partner, Mark, and they have one son, Jared. So all of these are family people that have put things together. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn it over to Chuck Dutel. He's going to kick it off. And then right after that, Stephanie will follow. Chuck, you ready?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Roy.
Hey,
This has
bud.
been
How
a
you
great
doing?
session today, and I'm going to bring my slide up here. So I have the opportunity to talk about the offense. We want to talk about offense with your money, your finances. And so there's 5 stages for your financial life. The first one is accumulation. We're going to talk about accumulating money, income protection. We've already talked about that, retirement, longevity of your income, and the last one is your legacy plan. So I have the opportunity to talk about the fundamentals of how your money works. And so we're going to dive right in here. There are three principles that have created all the wealth that has been created on this planet. I'm going to give you the 3 wealth principles. The first principle is called bypass the middleman, become the owner, not the loaner of the power of your money. Now, most people save their money in traditional financial institutions, that is banks, credit unions, insurance companies, and the IRS. What these companies do is that they take your money and they give you a very low rate of return. They give you a guaranteed rate of return. The problem is that you're not getting good growth on your money. What they're doing is they're taking your money and they're earning 5, 10, 15, 20% off from you. How are they doing it? Well, what they're doing is they're lending that money back to you through credit cards or maybe a mortgage, or either they're investing your money through mutual funds, or they're invested in real estate. So in other words, they're getting a great rate of return and you're getting a very paltry rate of return. So the first principle that we talk to people about is getting your money to work for you and bypass the middleman so that you can become the owner of the power of your money instead of the loaner of the power of your money. So that's principle number 1. Principle number 2 is called a rule of 72. In my opinion, this is the greatest law of the 3. This rule is why rich people are rich and why poor people are poor. This rule does not care who you are. They don't care if you're male or female, young or old, black or white. It doesn't make a difference at all. What this rule says is that when you divide the interest rate that you're getting into 72, you can find approximate number of years it takes for your money to double. So it sounds complicated, but let me break it down. So let's say, for an example, after seeing this webinar, this master class, you go to your bank or your credit union, you say, listen, I want a better rate of return. And so the bank is going to tell you, listen, you can get 1% if you put your money in what's called a CD, a certificate of deposit. They're paying right now about 1%. So let's plug it back into the rule. 1 goes into 72 times. So for most of the people that are watching this, everybody's reading this, that's a bummer, because what it says is that you can never accumulate wealth, and that's the problem. So how do we get tricked into doing this? Well, over a period of years, over a period of time, we've been programmed, we've been taught, we've been tricked, we've been hoodwinked, we've been bamboozled into putting our money into these financial industries, and so as a result, we haven't earned a lot of money. So let's say, for an example, we can get a better return on our money. And also, let's say, for an example, for this illustration purpose, and it really doesn't make a difference with ages. I want to teach the concept right now. But let's say I met you when you were 20 years old and you had $10,000 to invest. And what I want to do is illustrate the power of getting a better rate of return. So if you can get a 3% return on that $10,000, 3 goes into 72 24 times. So that $10,000 doubles to 20,000. Then it doubles again in 48 years to 40,000. So you're feeling a lot better. It's a whole lot better than what you're getting in a bank right now. So that's better. But I'm looking at your face, you're not excited about that. So let's take it to the next level. What if you can get a 6% return on your money? 6 goes into 72 12 times. So therefore, your money doubles every 12 years. So that $10,000 doubles to 20, then 40, then 80, then 160. So that's a whole lot better, okay, than what you're getting at a bank. Is a whole lot better than a 3% return. Now the question becomes, what if you can get a 12% return on your money? So when I looked at this years ago, and I saw this many, many years ago, I looked at this and I said, well, I'll just double what I was getting at 6%. So double 160 is 320,000. But I was dead wrong. I didn't understand the principle. And what happens is at 12%, your money doubles every 6 years. So that $10,000 doubles to 20, then 40, 80, 160, 320, 640, 1.2 million, 2.5 million. So when I saw this, it really shocked me and it really disturbed me, and I became very angry. And the reason why I became angry, because as a young man, when I left my home, I'm from Chicago originally. I came here to Cincinnati to come to work for a big company, Procter & Gamble. The only thing my mom could do was hug me, big alligator tear in her eye. That's all she could do. She didn't have nothing to give me other than that hug. And if my parents knew this principle, they could have written me a check for $10,000, said start an investment, every time you get paid, add some money to it. But that was not the culture. That was not the teaching that I received. And I thought about it, and my parents did the right thing. They saved their money, you're right, at a bank. So my point is this: how do you win the money game if you don't know the rules? It's impossible for you to do it. Number two, shouldn't we have learned this in high school? Absolutely. And the last one is, without introducing this principle of family and friends, how are they going to win the money game? We're going to do this again next week, and you have an opportunity to invite your family and friends that didn't get on this so they could learn these principles. So that's this principle, once again, is why rich people are rich and why poor people are poor. And so 95% of all the people on this planet are not doing this, regardless of the country or their situation. Rule number 3, pay yourself first, and you got to get started now. Now, when you don't do this, there's a high cost of waiting. So in this example, this takes a family where they're saving $1,000 a month at 9% for 40 years. And so we look at that, well, you know, how do you have that? Well, let's say your family, your combined income is $100,000 a year, combined income. Well, you can set aside $1,000 a month. So $1,000 a month, 9% for 40 years from age 25 to 65. Let's look at what would happen over this period of time. So if you do this, what happens is that $1,000 a month will grow to $4.7 million if you're age 25. But if you own this presentation, on this webinar, and you wait 1 year to get started, look at the cost of waiting. You're gonna grow a lot of money, $4.3 million, but you lost $416,000. To me, that's too much to lose. If you wait 5 years to get started at age 30, guess what? You lose 1.7 million. If you wait 15 years to get started, guess what? You're going to lose $3.5 million just by waiting. So what's the point of this page? You've got to get started now. I don't care how old you are, you've got to get started now so that your money could work for you. We tell people in our business that even if you don't come from money, if you don't have wealth, guess what? You can create wealth. If you don't come from wealth, wealth can come from you. So how do you do this? How do you make this happen? How do you get this great rate of return on your money? You have to invest with professional money management. So we're going to talk about one of these concepts, one of these principles for doing this, called a mutual fund. A mutual fund is an opportunity for you, along with other investors, to pool your money. So a mutual fund is a pooled investment. A whole bunch of people put their money together in a pot. And so when you put that money together in a pot, it helps you. And so let's say we go out, all the people on this call, we go out and we raise $1 billion and we set up this mutual fund. Inside of this mutual fund, it doesn't make a difference who you are or how much money you have. If you got $1,000 in it, 10,000 in it, 100,000 in this mutual fund, everybody in this mutual fund gets the same rate of return. So that's a big advantage for a mutual fund. That's number 2. Number 3 advantage for the mutual fund and how it works is we raised $1 billion. Guess what? We can find someone who's got the knowledge and experience to manage our money. It doesn't cost a lot of money to pay them a salary to manage this money. So you have that advantage working for you inside of this mutual fund. And then the last thing that happens is that the mutual fund is diversified. It's diversified so your money is not at risk inside of the fund. Next thing is that the mutual fund pays you three different ways. The first way in which you pay is what's called a dividend. And so these dividends are part of the profit structure inside of the stocks or bonds that you own inside of the mutual fund. The second way that you make money inside of the mutual fund is capital gains. Sometimes they might sell a position, a stock or bond at a profit, and that capital gain is reverted back to you. The third way is the capital appreciation. That means that your account has grown in value. Maybe you bought it at $10 a share, and now it's at $20 a share. And so that's good for you, and that the money is growing. The next thing that you have to understand inside of it is all of the different advantages. I talked about it. Number one is professional money management. Like in anything in life, there are three types of managers. Some people are poor managers, some people are average managers, and some people are great managers. And so all the advisors here on this call, our job is to put your money in the hands of what? A great money manager. The second valuable principle inside of a mutual fund is diversification of assets. What does that mean? So you can invest in any stock. I'm going to use stock as an example, and it's like this pen. If you invest in one stock, that could be a very risky investment because something could happen to that particular stock. And so it's just like this pen, that it could have a bad year, a series of years. I could break this pen, I get ink everywhere. So inside of a mutual fund, instead of having one stock that could be risky, you have 100 different stocks as an example. So if I had 100 pens, it's hard to break that up. It's your money is at less risk by doing it in that way. So diversification is a very important principle. The third one is growth potential. The last two is affordability. You don't have to have a tremendous amount of money to get inside of a mutual fund. Some of the advisors say you can get in for a monthly investment, $50, $100 a month, or $250 to get in. And so it's a great investment, and then it's also liquid. It's not like investing in real estate where you have to have some buyer to buy your property in order to liquidate it. Inside of a mutual fund, you can get your money back at any time. So those are some great reasons to own a mutual fund. Now, it depends on where you're at in terms of what you do and how you do your mutual fund. There are people on this webinar, I'm sure, that are younger. You've got some teenagers on here, which is great. And so when you're getting started and you're building up your money, for most people, you're in the accumulation phase. That's where you want your money to grow dynamically, and you're not really concerned so much about the fluctuations in the market. You want your money to grow. At some point, some of the risk in the market, or what's called the volatility, may not be what you want to experience, or you want to tone that down a little bit. So in a period of time, particularly when you're close to retirement, particularly when you're ready to stop working, you want to make sure that you set up a strategy where you don't have that volatility working against you, because it could hurt you once you get into retirement. And so the last phase is distribution. At some point, you're going to need to start drawing your money in order to continue the lifestyle or improve your lifestyle. And so those are the three phases as you look at your investments. And once again, your investments may need to change over that period of time. So as we get into this, there are 3 Ds of investing. And so let's look at these 3 Ds of how you put your money in. The first one is called dollar cost averaging. The second one is called discipline. Discipline is a huge one that we want to make sure that we take advantage of. Last year during the pandemic, many people pull their money out of investments, which was the wrong thing to do back then. And so they pulled their money out, and basically $2 trillion went into the hands of banks in 3 months, unheard of. And so discipline is very important. You want to make sure your money stays in the investment, and because it'll work for you over time. Then the last one is called diversification. So the first one is dollar cost averaging, or systematic investing. Now, this happens when an investor is putting money into an account. So you can do it inside of some investment accounts that we can set up for you. Chances are, if you're in a 401k, you're doing it inside of your 401k, your 403b through your job. So in this example, it looks at two investors. They're both investing $100 a month, and we're going to look at two different market scenarios. In the first scenario, the investor comes in and they're buying, and the market is going up each and every month. So they got $100 a month. They start off at $10 a share. 6 months later, it's at $20 a share. That's called a rising market. The second investor comes in, and it's a fluctuating market, kind of like what we saw last year. They start up at the same $10 a share, $100 a month. The market goes all the way down to $2 a share, and then it bounces right back up to the same $10 a share. So if you look at this, you say, well, who made the most money? Well, most people answer the rising market. And the truth of it is that they both made money. And that's the part that most people miss. Most people miss the fact that when the market is down, it works to your advantage because you accumulate more shares at a lower price. Now, this shows an illustration, real-time illustration of investing. See, it's time in the market that's important. It's time in the market that's important. And so this shows an example where the person on the left-hand side invested $10,000 and they invested near the top of the market. So in our industry, that's called the worst time. So they invested near the top of the market. And then on the right side, it showed a person that's investing $10,000 on the low of the market. So in other words, the best time. When you look at these two examples, what's really amazing by this, and this is why investing is so important, and this is why most people miss it in the area of investing, with both of these two examples, you can see that the rate of return for the person that invested at the quote unquote worst time, they got a 9% rate of return, whereas the person that invested at the best time end up in getting 10.45%. So that's the difference. And so it does make a difference. Nobody can determine the future of what's going to happen in the stock market, because if all of the advisors knew the future of the stock market and when the time and all that kind of jazz, we'd all be billionaires. We wouldn't be doing this stuff. So we don't know, but guess what? You let the market work for you over time, and it will. So what do you want to do next? You want to diversify your money. If you look at this chart going from the left all the way to the right, you can notice that there's different colors, and each of these colors represent a certain part of the market, a certain category of the market. So in the beginning, in 2003, small stocks were the dominant performer. So the top ones, the best or the highest returns are on the top, and then the worst returns are on the bottom. And if you look at this over a period of time, there were different times where certain parts of the market were dominating, but there was nothing that dominated all the way across the board. So what's the point here? The point is that different asset classes do different things from time to time. And so what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're diversified in these different markets so that your money can grow regardless of what's happening in the market. So let's look at these pandemics. There have been pandemics all over time. So if we go back to 2001, there was a SARS outbreak in 2003, and then we had the swine flu, and we had MERS, and we had Ebola, and then we had the coronavirus. And so what has happened is all of these pandemics, all these viruses, all of these concerns that we've had throughout the past 20 years have come into the market. And guess what? Over time, if you look at the market over time, it has continued to go up. And so we don't want to get caught up in the short term, these market challenges. We need to understand that history is a great teacher. And so if you look at this chart, this shows the last 6 bear markets that we've experienced over time. And we don't have the recent one in here as a bear market, but this will show the history of what happens. If you look at all these charts, and it shows the market low on there, and if you notice on the second column, it said the 1-year return. After every low, there's been a tremendous explosion to the upside where your stocks have done much better. And then if you look at the 5-year history all the way to the right, you can see the average rate of return has been very significant. Let's look at the last one in particular, the financial crisis. Most of us remember the financial crisis, what was going on in our life and how we were working and that type of thing. And you notice that during that period of time, during the financial crisis, the first year, the market was up 49%, and it averaged 21% during that period of time. So the market performed much, much better after the market has gone down and we've had a bear market situation. And guess what? History will probably prove that when the market went down in 2020, we're going to have the same type of thing happen. You know, certainly the market has been up very strong since it went down last year in March and April. So history is a teacher, understanding when the market goes down, it's an opportunity for you to buy in. And so as I get ready to close out of this part, we have to understand and have a proper perspective of how money works. If we look at the market over 10-year rolling averages, and we go all the way back to 1939, we see that what happens over all these 10-year averages, going back to 1939, right after the Great Depression, there's a positive rate of return. So we look at all those returns in here, you say, man, the returns, the 10-year returns went anywhere from 9% all the way up to 17, 18%. So it just shows that during this period of time, there was a tremendous growth in the market, but you have to stay in the market and you have to make sure your money is working for you. And so the S&P mean return over all of these 10-year periods of time from 1937 until the year 2019 was 10.48%. That's huge. So at 10.48%, you're putting it back in the rule of 72, your money's doubling every 7 years. So let's automate your money and your growth of your money. Classic saying in personal finances, pay yourself first. So what do you want to do is you want to make sure you set up an account. We have a ton of clients that put their money in and we draft their bank account. So you want to automate it. If you're investing through your 401k, once again, that's a way for you to automate your financial independence number. You want to take advantage of it inside of your job, particularly if your company matches. If your company matches, free money is good money, and it will power your return and power your opportunity to create a lot of wealth. And so if your company does not offer these tax advantage retirement plans, you can still save money. You can get involved in an IRA, and you can talk to the advisors that are here on this call. They can help you set one up and set up an automatic bank draft so you can create your wealth and save money on taxes as well. What are your investment choices? 3 different types of investment choices. One is called aggressive. Aggressive type of investor is somebody who maybe has a high risk tolerance and not concerned about the fluctuation in the market, or they have a long time to invest, like our younger people, our teenagers, that type of thing. You can be more aggressive. You can have a higher percentage of your money into stocks. The next one's a moderate investor. This is a person who they're maybe concerned about the fluctuation in the market, and so they maybe have a shorter term time horizon to invest their money. And so in that situation, you want to reduce the percentage of stocks, relative bonds in the side of your portfolio. The last one is your conservative investor. This type of portfolio is a person that has a real low risk tolerance, and maybe they have a short time frame to work with. And so in that situation, you have the lowest percentages of stocks in here. So this shows an example of these different models in here where you have all these different stocks as well as bonds inside of your portfolio. The green is the bonds, and you can see the rest are stocks. And it shows that as you move from aggressive to conservative, your bond percentage increases. Put it on autopilot, the asset allocation. Some companies inside of your 401k, your default setting is what's called a target date fund. What is a target date fund? What that does is you can go in there and pick your retirement time, and it will tell you whether you're going to retire 40 years from now, 35, 20, whatever it is. And so what happens is it's an automatic allocation, and it will have your stocks, and over time, it will automatically reduce the percentage of stocks and put more money into your bonds or fixed income type funds, such that by the time you get close to retirement, your money is not as risk, it's not fluctuating as much there. So this is one of the things that you can do. We have the same thing that our advisors can set up for you, target date funds, as well as your employee can do the same. And the last one is rebalancing. What do you do when your portfolio is out of whack? Sometimes your portfolio can get out of whack, particularly in the last 11, 12 years. Stocks have been doing great. And so you want to make sure that you rebalance over time so that you don't have too much exposure in the wrong type of way, and it could hurt you over time. So rebalancing is a strategy that can minimize the risk in your portfolio. And so if you start off with a portfolio, let's say it's 60% is invested in stocks over the past 12 years or so, it could run all the way up to 80% of stocks because of all these gains. And so what you want to do is to make readjustments in there, rebalance your portfolio. You want to make sure that you're working with a coach that can help you make choices and do the rebalancing with you. Some of our accounts have automatic rebalancing, which is a great thing to help you. Now, at this point, what I want to do is I want to stop my share and bring up our next presenter. And I want to make sure, Stephanie, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, fantastic. This is my friend from the far west, and she's going to lay it out for us. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Chuck. You did an awesome job. Thanks. And you set me up perfectly. So that'll be fantastic. Let me share my screen now. Start my slideshow. There we go. So I get to talk about the actual retirement plans and stuff that are available to you. Some of them are available to you through your employer. Some of them are outside of that. And so my favorite, honestly, is your personal accounts, things that you can do whether your employer does a plan or not. And the first one that most people are familiar with is just a traditional IRA, or an IRA is an individual retirement account, meaning it's not attached to an employer. In the US, this is what we have as one of our options. It's the maximum amount you can put into it per year is $6,000 or $500 a month. And that is per person. So a married couple could actually do two and do $500 each or $1,000 a month. The fun thing is I just turned 50 this last year, and now I get to be a big girl and put 7,000 in there. So we have a catch-up provision for when you hit 50 or older, you can actually put an additional amount of money. And I think the government thinks that we probably haven't done a great job saving for our own retirement, and we need the ability to put more money away. And so that is a nice option for us to be able to have. Anything that you put into a traditional IRA is usually tax deductible. There are some caveats to that. I'm not going to go down too deep into that right now. Your tax advisor or your financial advisor can help you with that. And then you are forced to make withdrawals out of your traditional IRA by age 72. So if you haven't needed that money before then, now you're going to be forced to draw that money out. My favorite retirement account is the Roth IRA. Okay, same contribution limits as the traditional IRA, but it is not tax deductible. So it doesn't save you money on your taxes today. Okay, it's after tax contributions. But the cool thing is it's not taxed at retirement. Okay. So when you get out to retirement, whatever's in that account, you get to pull that tax free. And that's a huge advantage I'm going to go into in a little bit. But the other thing I absolutely love about the Roth IRA is there's no forced withdrawals. Over the years, I've had a lot of clients that have gotten out into their 70s and done a really good job saving. They may have a pension and Social Security, done a great job getting their debts paid off, and really don't feel like they need to pull from their investments yet. And they kind of, resent having to pull money from their traditional accounts. And this is a great way to have legacy money and or just take money when you want it. My dad, who worked for me for years, I always had this funny story. He loved to go to Las Vegas, and he said if he wanted to go donate $2,000 to the poor people of Las Vegas, he didn't want to also contribute to Uncle Sam, right? He only wanted to take out the $2,000 and not extra money to pay the taxes. And then Canada, their TFSA, which is a tax-free savings account, is very similar to our Roth IRA. They have different contribution limits a little bit in that they have the 6,000, but there's no catch-up provisions. But it also has a carryover provision, meaning that if you could only put in $4,000 this year, and next year you could make that extra $2,000 up and do year 6, you could do 8 the next year. So that's a nice provision. But here's why I really want you guys to understand about the Roth IRA, because to me, a lot of people misunderstand how this works. And what it is if you think about Chuck's example of that rule of 72, right? Where if you only put $10,000 away one time, and say you did that right out of high school or college, or right out of high school, and you had, age 19 or 20, you had either gotten a bunch of gifts or, worked and saved money like you're supposed to, and you had this $10,000 put away, right? Well, that grew at the rule of 72 on when it's fully invested to 2.5 million, right? Well, if you think about it, if you put that money in a traditional IRA or a traditional retirement account, that money would grow to 2.5 million as well, but it would be all taxable. So every bit of that 2.5 million you pull out is taxable. Whereas the Roth, only your contributions are taxed. So you've already paid taxes on that 10,000, you put that 10,000 in. Now all your earnings for the rest of your life are completely tax-free, meaning that when you get out to retirement and you have that 2.5 million, that's completely tax-free. Okay. And I've heard arguments from people saying, oh, I'd rather pay my taxes later, I'd rather have the tax deduction now, right? And that I'll be in a lower tax bracket later. Well, that's a bunch of bunk as far as I'm concerned. If you think back over your lifetime, depending on how old you are, if you started working in your teens versus where you're at right now in your life, you're probably making a lot more money now. I would have rather paid taxes on the money I was making back then and made contributions to a Roth than to pay taxes on what I'm earning now. But flip side of that, also think about this. If you had to pay, let's say 100% taxes on whatever you put into your Roth. So you put 10,000 in your Roth, you paid $10,000 in taxes on that, right? Versus you only had to pay 1% taxes on the traditional when you drew it out, right? But you're paying 1% on 2.5 million, right? You're still paying way more taxes on that traditional account than you would on that Roth account. You catch me? And so that's two complete extremes that we're never going to get to. But if you go somewhere in the middle, you're going to realize how much more of an advantage that Roth IRA is going to have for you over the traditional. So the Canadian TFSA and our Roth IRA in the US is really the way to go when it comes to a personal account. Employer-sponsored plans that are out there, now that I've said I love the Roth IRA so much, don't think you shouldn't do your retirement plans through work, okay? Because typically in the US, one of the most common retirement plans that we hear of is the 401k, okay? And in fact, when I talk to business owners and people about, opening up a retirement plan for the business, the only term they know is 401k, but there's multiple terms and we'll go into that. But what is wonderful about our 401ks now is we have both Roth and traditional options for contributions, okay? So I've got a couple plans right now where the employees are all putting in Roth contributions and they're getting matched. The match always has to go into the traditional side because the business needs that tax deduction, but the employees are accumulating a much larger Roth, meaning tax-free at retirement account for themselves. And they're also doing the Roth IRAs. They're going to retire with very, very little taxes. And who wouldn't love to do that, right? And so the nice thing about a 401k also is you can put up to $19,500 a year in there. That doesn't count your matching. That's just your contributions. And if you're doing that all Roth, plus you're doing your Roth IRA, that's a lot of money you could be putting away that is going to grow for you tax-free. And if you're, like I said, 50 or older, you get a catch-up. Well, in a 401k, it's $6,500 a year. So you could actually put a total of $26,000 away into your 401k at work. And I'm telling you that a lot of my clients go through this process where they'll go, oh, I'm going to get my kids through college, then I'm going to save for retirement, right? Well, now you've really shortened that time frame. And as you've seen in some of the examples, you have to save a lot more money to reach the same goal than if you started way back in the beginning. And so I have a lot of people that are maxing out their contributions to their 401k trying to catch up. But if you would have started that in the beginning, you would have been so much better off and you would not have a thing to worry about in retirement. So one of my best pieces of advice I always give people is start with your retirement plan up to your full matching. Most 401ks will match you, whether it's 3%, 4%, 5%, 6%, they vary drastically, but get that free money at least, put that money in, you're instantly doubling your money. right? And then you can start your own personal accounts. Again, in a 401k, if it's in the traditional part of the balance is always going to be forced to withdraw at 72. But if you're doing Roth and traditional, if you're lucky enough to have that option, then you're going to have a big chunk of your money that you are going to have a lot more control over. So I love having retirement plans for people because I want other people contributing to my retirement as well. So a couple other plans that people have probably heard of is a 403b or a 457 or deferred comp. They have the same contribution limits as a 401k. There is no Roth options, and there can be forced withdrawals on those as well. 403bs and are typically for your hospitals, your churches, your school districts, and 457s a lot of times is your police and fire departments. There's other, but that's the general. In Canada, they have an RRSP, which is a registered retirement savings plan, and they have pre-tax contributions only, so they don't have the like ours, the Roth after tax. But they can contribute up to 18% of your income, but a maximum of $27,830 a year. So just depending on your income, where you can hit that. And then they have at age 71 versus our 72, they actually force you to cash that account out or move that money. And so you can either cash it out completely, you can buy an annuity, you can convert it to an RRIF, or do any combination thereof. So there are some options with those. Whereas in the US, we have other options I'm going to get to in a little bit, but some of the other smaller retirement plans that are available, if anybody on here is a small business owner and you only thought there was a 401k available, I love the SEP and simple IRAs. I'm going to pull all the numbers up here for a second. SEP IRAs, in my opinion, it's a simplified employee pension plan, as you can read on the screen. But my concept of this is typically for someone that either has no employees or very little employees, or maybe is a partnership, but they want the higher contribution limits because they can contribute up to $58,000 of the income or 25% of their income, but whichever is less. So meaning that if you only made $100,000 a year, only made $100,000 a year, you could put 25% of that, which is 25,000. So you couldn't get to the 58,000. Okay, so depending on your income. There is no catch-up provisions allowed in there, but the thing I really don't care for in this type of a plan is that it's employer-only contributions, meaning that if you have employees and they want to contribute to a plan, they cannot put their own money into this. This is only from the business or the employer that the money gets funded in this. And so I'm a huge advocate for simple IRAs for most small businesses when they first start out, unless they want those higher contribution limits, because you can still do $13,500 if you're under age 50, and then you get a $3,000 catch up if you're 50 or older. But it allows you to have matching for your employees, but you're incenting your employees to do that. So there's flexibility with your matching. One of the things that I love to talk to small business owners about is, let's say they have a spouse, right, that's not working in the business. You can put up to 100% of someone's salary into that simple IRA. So for example, if you have a spouse that does your bookkeeping or whatever, and you actually haven't really been paying them a salary or whatever, you can pay them exactly $13,500 this year, and 100% of that can go away into their simple IRA. So it's a great way for someone to not throw money away, but shelter money away. They don't have to pay taxes on it. They're getting more put away for their retirement, things like that. And it really brings value to that small business owner where they didn't know that was an option before. It is a benefit to their employees. The employees get to participate, they get some education, and they get started on their own plans. And so I really feel that a lot of small businesses should start out with a simple IRA, maybe a separate IRA, like I said, if the provisions are correct for that. But not everybody has to have a 401k. Now, once you get to a certain point, then you're going to grow up into a 401k is hopefully what happens with your business. So let's talk about options for your retirement plan assets after you leave your employer, okay? Because I think last statistics I heard, and I think it's even worse now, is that between the time you start working as a teenager till your retirement, you switch jobs at least 7 times. I think I know people that have done that 25 times at this point. So depending on your situation, but what happens is a lot of times you'll have that retirement plan, whatever it was at work, and then you go to the next employer and you just kind of leave that one there, right? Because here's human nature. If we don't know what to do, we tend to not do anything. Would you guys agree with that? right? And so people a lot of times just go, well, I don't know what to do with it. I'm just going to leave it there, right? Okay, so one of the first options that you have is that you can do what's called a rollover, okay? And I want to make this clear that this is a tax-free transfer. You're not cashing it out and spending it, right? So you're moving it to another retirement plan, whether you move it from the employer you were at before to the new employer. If they have a retirement plan, that's an option. You can move it to there. Not all plans accept that, but most do. Or you can move it to your own personal IRA, right? And let's say it was a small account. You had, $5,000 in it or something like that, or $2,000 in it, and you moved it to your own personal IRA. You have options for that called a Roth conversion. You might be able to convert that to a Roth IRA, but there's some huge benefits to having control of yourself and not being limited to whatever that retirement plan or the next retirement plan offers. You can make no changes, which is what happens a lot of times. You may be able to leave it with your account balance with your former employer, but a lot of employers don't even allow that anymore. They want that money out of there and off their books within 30 to 60 days. And what happens sometimes too is they don't want the financial liability of managing your money when you're no longer an employee. So I've seen it many, many times where you'll have it invested when you're working there and you leave there, and eventually you get a statement, you're like, why am I in a money market? I have a savings account now, basically for retirement. Going back to Chuck's example, we're not talking 3%, we're talking 1%, meaning your money's going to double every 72 years. That is not the plan you should have for your retirement account, okay? So I'm not a big fan of leaving it in a former employer. Or you can do a lump sum distribution, okay? This is, to me, a last resort, okay? Sometimes, life happens and sometimes you can't feed your family and you need that money. But to kind of give you guys an example of my personal story, and one of the things that really got me hooked when I interviewed to work here and do this, as a career, I worked for an employer when I was 18 to 23 when I finished school, right? And I had over $4,000 in a 401k. Nobody talked to me about rolling it over to an IRA or, what it would do for me long-term. I was just like, what's $4,000 going to do for me in retirement? I cashed it out, right? And I didn't get $4,000, right? Because when you cash it out, you're going to pay taxes and penalties, which tend to be, if you're in a 20% tax bracket and the IRS penalty is 10%, that's 30%. You're losing a third of your account to taxes and penalties. But I cashed it out and bought a truck, right, to go to the dump with. It was an old Chevy pickup that we just needed a dump run truck. I didn't need that money. I already had another job. If somebody would have taken the time to show me what that would have done for me, I would have made a completely different choice. And I will tell you, I interviewed here 1 year later, right? 1 year later. I remember interviewing and sitting through that after they showed me that rule of 72, and I could not stop thinking about that. I was livid, okay? And I went home and I found my paperwork and I did the math myself. It cost me over $700,000 at retirement. I still get goosebumps. It still makes me crazy. And that's 25 years ago, okay? We're doing great. We were able to catch up. But I wouldn't turn down another $700,000 at retirement, would you? Right? But it's not I'm not a stupid person. I didn't consider myself stupid, but I was very ignorant to how money works. Okay. That's the reason we're doing these webinars, is because we are really, as a nation, in my opinion, very financially illiterate. We do not know what we should know to make better choices. And so again, like I said, if you have to feed your family, you have to feed your family. But in my case, I cashed it out because I didn't know any better. And it really, really cost me. So I'm very passionate about that side of it. So definitely think over your choices on that. So here's some of the advantages I really feel of rolling over your 401k into your own personal IRA. Okay, you have more investment choices and control. Think about it. When you're in a 401k, you have 15 to 20 choices, right? And that's it. That's your world of investments. Whereas when you roll it over to an IRA, you have this whole world of investments to choose from. You can do mutual funds, and there's thousands of them out there. You're not limited to just the funds in your plan. You can go as aggressive or as conservative as you want. There's just a complete array of options for you there. You can do an annuity. A lot of times people will do that when they're just like not really ready to take that risk on anymore. They're getting closer to retirement and they would like more of a guarantee to their money. That's an option. You don't have that within a retirement plan for your next employer. And you have managed accounts, and I'm not going to go too deep into that, but that's just another level of investing that you can do. The whole point is when you take money from an old retirement plan and you move it into your own IRA, you get to have some say in what happens. You get to make the choices based on what's best for you, not what's best for that employer, not what's best for everybody that you work with, what's best for you. And that to me is one of the hugest advantages. And you get personalized guidance from an advisor, right? I mean, as much as I know, I still like to get other people's input on stuff, and I am learning all the time. Too many people, like, I don't remember who it was said earlier, but you get your 401k and you just kind of pick. You don't have any guidance on that. Whereas, you know, if you have a personal advisor, you have that. And like I was talking about before, if it's a small enough account and it won't kill your taxes, doing a Roth conversion can mean a huge benefit for you long term. And again, if you have any questions on that, get with whoever invited you, get with whoever let you in on this training today, and they can really walk you through that and see if that makes any sense for you personally. Now, let's go talk about college plans. Okay, a lot of people, again, we're pretty ignorant. We really are. Canada has a great program as far as I'm concerned, the RESP. It is kind of sponsored by the government of Canada, which I hadn't known that actually before I really delved into this, and I was really impressed. The contributions you put in are tax-free earnings for college, for higher education, right? So like a Roth IRA would be tax-free. This is tax-free for college, okay? And in addition to what the parents put in, the government actually contributes as well, okay, until the kids are 18, okay? The maximum lifetime contributions is $50,000 per beneficiary, which is the child. And if the child doesn't pursue an approved post-secondary education training program within 36 years of opening the account, so if you open it when they were 10, then that's when they were 46. If you opened up when they were born, then that's when they're 36. The government can request that grant money back, okay? And there are penalties, income tax incurred on investment earnings, so not what you contributed, but the earnings when they are withdrawn and not used for college or vocational school, okay? So similar to that, in the US, we have two types of plans. Traditionally, we have the 529 plan, okay, which a lot of people are familiar with those. They have tax-free growth for education as well. So again, Roth IRA, think of Roth IRA, if you're using this for education expenses, then it is tax-free earnings. You don't have to pay taxes on that earnings. It's a 15,000 year maximum contribution per contributor. Okay, and that's really important to understand the difference between being the contributor or the beneficiary. That means in a family, and I've had this a lot when I'm trying to help, maybe the grandparents are trying to gift some money to their kids, right? They can do $15,000 each. So if there's two grandparents and you have two kids, so if it's my son and let's say my nephew, right? And then my parents wanted to contribute money. My mom could put $15,000 for my son and my nephew each. So that's $30,000. My dad could do $15,000 and $15,000. So that's another $30,000. So they can do $60,000 for those two kids, just for them. And if they wanted to, they could front load that to 5 years. So I think that's $75,000 that they can lump sum in at one time. Now they can't add any more in for the next 5 years, but they could lump sum a bunch of money in. And it's a great way for them to do that without paying the taxes on it and paying gift taxes on it. And so I use 529 plans a lot when I have family members and grandparents that really want to contribute larger sums of money. It's new. Recently, they changed the rules on it. It used to be for higher education only. Now it can be used for K through 12 expenses as well, okay, which I absolutely love, because we don't know when they're young if they're going to go to college or not, but there's some expenses that come up along the way that can be covered. You know, if they're going to a private school and they need tuition, if they need a, you know, in this day and age with COVID, they need a laptop or a iPad or something like that, those things could be covered by the 529 plan. The child, though, is the beneficiary, not the owner, which I absolutely love as well, meaning that if my son didn't use his 529 plan, I could then change the beneficiary, meaning it won't be my son's money anymore, to my nephew, right? And so you have control as the parent or the guardian on that account. You could be the grandparent or the parent or whatever. You have to be, you know, there has to be a relationship there for you to have that account for them, but you can change the beneficiaries. I had multiple times where I have one kid in the family goes to college and the other one doesn't, and we just changed the beneficiary from, you know, Johnny to Susie or Susie to Johnny, depending on what needs to happen. And so there's a lot of flexibility and control for the custodian or the, you know, the person that's in charge of that account. Okay. And then there's no age limit on the contribution. So you can do one for yourself. If you know that you're wanting to go back and get your master's degree or go back to school period, and you want to start contributing to an account, you can still do that for yourself. One fun thing I've done in the past, just as an idea, if anybody's pregnant out there, we can't start a college plan for your child until we have a social security number, right? They're not really, as far as the government's concerned, they're not an entity until, you know, they're born. But I will start a 529 plan with the mom or the dad's name, right? And they're contributing to it before they even have the child. And once the child is born, then we change the beneficiary to the child, right? So I love that flexibility that's available within the 529 plans. We also have a Coverdell Education Savings Account. Now, this was always my first line one that we would do, because prior to the 529 plans being allowed to do K through 12, they only did higher education. The Coverdell's always been able to be used for K through 12 expenses. And so I have a lot of clients that do both accounts, and they were using the Coverdell to pay for their kids' private school. Okay, so the tuition for the school. And that was a great way to work that. This one is tax-free growth as well. So tax-free money at whenever you're using it for education, but the maximum contribution per child, and it's per child, not per beneficiary, or per contributor, is $2,000 a year. So even if you have 5 people in your family that want to contribute to this account, the total account for that child cannot exceed $2,000. I will be honest with you, most families, that's not a problem. Most parents will set up $50 or $100 a month into a college plan for their kids. And then at Christmas and birthdays, like several of us have talked about, grandparents would make a contribution, $25, $50, $100, whatever they want to contribute. As long as we're not exceeding that $2,000 a year contribution limit, we can do that. And so it's a great way, again, in smaller numbers than the 529, but it's a great way for people to be able to contribute to the child's college. Because I'm telling you, I don't know about your guys' kids, but my son, when he was young, did not need any more toys. So I begged my family members to just make a donation to the college fund. So it's a great way to do that. One of the things, again, it's very similar to the 529 plan, is the child is the beneficiary, not the owner. So you can, again, change the beneficiaries, but the child must use the money by the time that they're 30. Okay, versus the 529 plan has no age restrictions. The Coverdell, you have to use it by your 30, and you can only contribute to it until you're 18. So there's more restrictions on that one. But again, you can change those beneficiaries. And so a lot of times I say, if your child doesn't end up needing to use it and they have a child by the time that they're 30, then you can change it to your grandchild. So there's a lot of flexibility with both these plans, difference in contribution limits and control, but both of them are fantastic options. And then the last one I'm going to go over is what's called an UGMA or an UTMA, depending on what state you're in. It's a uniform gift or transfer to minors account. Okay. I'll be honest, this isn't my favorite one. And I guess I'm a pessimistic parent a little bit, even though I think my son's done a great job growing up in this business. But the assets actually belong to the child. You cannot change the beneficiaries. Okay. That's not necessarily a problem. But it does protect that money. So let's say you have a situation where you want to contribute to your grandchild's an account for your grandchild, but you don't really want their parent, if you don't, I know it's a horrible thing to say, but sometimes that's the situation. You don't want the parent to screw that up. The custodian can only use that money for the child's benefit. So you can't use it to buy yourself a boat. Your child does not need a boat, right? But one of the huge tax advantages is the earnings are taxed at the child's tax rate, and the child most likely doesn't have any income. And so you'd have to earn quite a bit on it. At least, I think it was $600 or more a year before it's even taxed. And if it is, it's at that really minimal tax child rate. The part that I don't like about the account, and this is again my pessimistic parent side talking, is the child has full access to their account at age of majority. Well, in Washington state, every state's a little bit different, but Washington state, that's age 18. There's not a whole lot of 18-year-olds I want to hand over money to, okay? And so, you have to use your own discretion on that. There is definitely some use for these accounts, but that is just not my favorite when it comes to putting money away for a child. I think there's other ways that we can do that. So all in all, I mean, we have a tremendous amount of options for whether you as an adult or you as your kids. Just talk to the person that invited you. This is, you know, there's just endless possibilities and opportunities here. It just really comes down to what works for you as an individual or in your situation. So let us help you with that. So with that, I am done. I'm going to hand it back to Roy.
Hey, Stephanie, great job. And hey, great scarf, by the way. I like it.
Thank you.
Guys, first off, I want to compliment you. I look, you know, I get to see the screen, and we, you know, we have so many people still on here that have stuck in here, and we're getting ready to wind it up. And also, Chuck, great job. Both of those parts are kind of the foundation of, you know, first off, understanding the way money grows. And then you start having a different view in what you're doing with your money. You say, that's not $1, that's $1 if I blow it. That's $6 or $9, depending on the time and the rate of return. So we have that. There's some other things that I want to kind of just review here, kind of my key takeaways. The most important thing I would tell you to do on retirement planning is to automate it. And what I mean by that is set up something to where it's either your 401k, where it's automatically out of your account. If you're in the US or in Canada, take advantage of all of the things that can automate retirement. All right, you're kind of dialing in the result when you do that. So that's the first thing. I want to give you a couple of things about investments. You know, Chuck talked about the asset allocation or diversification among asset classes and things like that. So I'll just give you a little stat. So if you're, say, 45 years old and you have money right now and you have it invested and you're going to leave it for 20 more years. Now, this is a 20-year difference, and you let that money grow, but you miss out on a 0.5% return because you maybe don't have help, maybe you don't have it in the right place, you know, but you miss out on 0.5%. That's going to equate to 5 years of retirement income. How about that? If you miss out on 0.5%, if you miss out on 1% return because it's not done right, you don't have it in. And I see this all the time. I mean, I see people where they let their retirement plans just sit. You know, she's talking about rollovers and stuff like that. They don't. I ask them, so where's it out? I don't know. What's it invested? I don't know. All right. If you miss out on 1% rate of return, that costs you 13 years of income in retirement. And so I want you to think about that. If you are out there, I always ask people a question. I say, do you have anybody helping you with your money? And the reason I ask that is because, and the answer generally for most people is no, they don't have anybody helping. And as a result, it shows up, you know, I mean, what's the extra 5 years of income to you, or 13 years of income? And that's only over that period of time. One more thing that I wanted to hit was timing never works. I've had numerous questions here where people ask me, they say, now that we in the States, we have a new president, what should I do? And I would say nothing different. We just make sure that we consistently invest. We have a plan. We never panic. We diversify. We do all that kind of stuff. And so it is time, though, that you do a review. You should always be once a year doing a review on your investments, make sure your allocation's correct, make sure that you're taking advantage of all the things that you can. A couple other things, I've had people, you know, if you're a small business owner, she got into a lot of detail on that. Take advantage of it. And here's some of the things you need to realize. As a small business owner, I'm going to compliment you on being a small business owner. I've been in business for myself all those years, but you have to build your structure. You know, if you go to work for a company, they may provide a retirement plan or health insurance or anything like that. But as an independent contractor, entrepreneur, you are responsible for your structure, and you need to make sure you have everything in place, and even better than it would be. A couple other things, you know, I tell people when they're young, you know, take advantage of that compound interest. You want to have a goal. I told my daughter, who's 29, I said, honey, you need to have a goal. I told all my kids this, that the goal is you need to have at least $100,000 by the time you're 30. And you say, well, how do you do that? Well, the way you do that is if you're a young couple, you got two incomes, okay, you just sacrifice and save and live on one income. All right, for 2 or 3 years, get 100 grand. And if you do that, you put yourself in charge of your future right off the bat. So anyway, so we're going to finish this up, and, you know, I'm bringing on the next guy that is I mean, a legend in the financial services business for helping people. I want you to kind of think about this. He oversees over $3.5 billion of people's money. All right, that he started from scratch, building a financial business. You know, the one thing he created and has really stayed with is the financial independence number. Arlie and Fern are up in Canada. They have a business in the U.S. and Canada. They have children that have also joined them in the business of helping people with their money. And so what we're going to do, Arlie's going to come up and we're going to have kind of a little bit of Q&A. Then I'm going to let him kind of close it out. And I want to kind of close it out. And once again, we appreciate you attending, but don't leave. We got more to come. We're going to answer some questions, that kind of thing. So Arlie, are you there? Hey, Arlie.
I'm here. Go ahead.
Hey, buddy. So I thought to start with, I might ask you a few questions that, you know, you've been listening in and stuff like that. What are some of the key takeaways that, you know, that you've come up with just from listening today that you're going to try to educate people on? What I want to do too, Arlie, is I'm going to kind of break it down a little bit, you know, so if you're young and getting started, and then maybe if you're in your 50s, you know, what you ought to be thinking about some of the stuff. And then even if you're retired. So can you start maybe with somebody young? What would you say some key takeaways that you tell people?
Well, I think you cannot start too soon. I mean, parents that have sort of gotten used to saving and investing and paying down debt should be educating their children. I mean, the very first thing they should do is start thinking about our children, because the children are growing up in an environment where, you know, they really don't know anything about money except put it in the piggy bank or head to the store. So when you start to educate children, and we heard some about that, and it's just incredible what everybody shared on this conference today, because if it was me and I was a young adult or even a young person in college or even before college, I would try to get to be a saver, because there's really two categories of people. There's savers and spenders. And generally, if you can become a saver, for whatever reason, you've got to make saving a bigger deal than owning or buying assets that are going to depreciate in value. So as a young person, I would highly recommend really getting How Money Works books, sharing some of the basic secrets of, you know, how money works with your children. And as they get along the way, then, you know, the college becomes a factor. And even during college, part-time work. You know, I've got a grandson who's going through to be a doctor, and he's just in college right now, but he makes about half of what he needs from working at Starbucks, and he's an assistant manager there. But he's gotten so that, you know, if I say to him, well, show me what you got in your bank account, you know, he'll always have $8,000 or $10,000 in his bank account, because he's aware that he's got to really get through without a lot of debt. So my take is, you either will get it or you won't get it, but start really young. If I was a young adult, I would be really living the way that I'd want my children to live. And I would really put in front of them the need to put a little bit away every month, whether they got a paper route or whether they're working part-time somewhere or they're getting birthday money. Save it, because at one point you're going to have such an advantage over everybody else when it comes to feeling free, having reserves, and moving forward with your life.
So, Arlie, great. And you know, the two things that I believe that people have to do is when they're young, they really need to, and I thought this was great advice. You know, I always have believed this, that, you know, age 30 is a big number for people. And they say, oh, I'm getting old, I'm 30. No, you're not old. I mean, I just turned 60. But the point of it is you need to have a plan. And the plan is you need to have an income plan. And you need to have found something by time, you know, as soon as you can. If some of you're past 30 and it's not too late, but the point being is that you want to have a plan to do something that you love to do, so then you don't have a job. And because you love it, you'll get great at it. And because you're great at it, you'll get paid. All right. And so you work on your income plan. And the second thing is that you want to really get that mindset of 100 grand. That's what I would say. And if you're not there, if you get 50, man, you're doing great. All right. But then do what Arlie just said and focus on, you know, automating savings to where every time, you know, every month goes by, you do that. what changed my life, I put together something that says $50 can change your life, because I started a $50 mutual fund about 36 years ago. And those are the kind, that's how you get started. So if you're not saving, you can go and get started. Okay, so early now they've moved into their 50s. Okay. You know, their kids are great, getting ready to get out of college, or they're right in that range. Tell us what you would tell them to do.
Well, I would definitely be reviewing my retirement plans. I would be thinking about the fact that maybe by this time the children are through college and their expenses are dropping like a stone. Unless they're getting carried away and upgrading everything they have, they're going to have a lot of disposable income. And so I would be taking a look at my FIN number. I would definitely reevaluate my financial independence number, which is ultimately the goal. If you don't have a financial independence number, you don't know that you're going to need that 2 million or 1 million or 3 million to live your life of dreams. I'm 71. And had we not understood that my financial independence number at age 38 was 2.6 million, and our kids were still at home and I was broke, and most people say, well, oh my goodness, how did you pull it off? Well, you know, at 38, we still had 37 years to go. And so the kids got through college and we got a plan together, and we are not retired. We will never retire, but we do what we love. And so if you do what you love and you've got your goal set, I would say just pour everything you got into making sure that when you finally do pull the plug, maybe you want to retire, or maybe you just want to work part-time at something you love to do, then I would say, you know, your number one focus is, yes, make sure you're okay protection-wise, but your long-term protection is going to be your investment portfolio. And maybe you can downsize the house a bit later, but really you've got to take a good close look at where you're sitting today and realize that in 15 years, if you're in your 50th year, you're going to be 65 years old, the sort of normal retirement age. And did I plan for this, or is it coming at me too fast? And, you know, 15 years is a lot of time yet to do a lot of things. If you've gotten rid of a lot of your expenses, maybe your mortgage is paid off. These are the kinds of things that, you know, when people really get to the middle years, they have still the greatest opportunity. I mean, a lot of my clients have retired financially independent, and I never met them till they were in their 40s and 50s. And so we've been here 33 years. And so naturally we've watched a lot of habits, a lot of patterns. And so I would just get really good at getting the goal out in front of you, and then fixate on that goal and make sure that you got in place the automated plans on how you're going to reach that goal. Because that's not something, I mean, you decide on your lifestyle, and that fund you need to fund that, along with any kind of pensions you have, that's not optional. If you want to live a good life, and you're living one now, then you've got to do what it takes. So in the middle years, you still have time. Number one resource is time with money, and you can have an incredible financially free retirement. So that's where I'd focus if I was in the middle years.
Okay, and I want to bring something up that Arlie just said. He said a lot of people have their home paid off. All right. But one of the things that's going on right now that I want to encourage you to do is take a look at your interest rate on your mortgage, because, you know, at this point in time, interest rates are at an all-time low all over the world. And so it would be a great opportunity to, you know, refinance and then take that difference in the monthly payment and invest that money. It gives you money to free up to save, because I see this all the time where, you know, people have a home they owe $200,000 or $300,000 on, and they can save, you know, sometimes 1.5%, 2% even. I've seen loans like that, and they think it's a big deal. It's really not. You need to get with whoever invited. They can help you, you know, find out how to get all that done. So anyway, so Arlie, let's move into you're now retired. Okay. Some ideas there.
Well, once you hit the golden age and you decide that you've got what it takes to live your life in dignity, and you're not going to run out of money, or if you have enough and you've got a part-time gig and you're still earning money, and you decide that you want to, then you just got to make sure when you look at your portfolio that it's going to deliver for you. I mean, you either have, if you had a rental house, you collect the rent, and if the rent keeps getting paid and you don't have a mortgage on it, that's fine. That's a income stream. But you look at your income streams and you look at the risk, and you say, what happens if I need this much every month and the market tanks? Well, you better have enough that, you know, you could probably be drawing from your fixed income fund or your bond fund, and together you could drop. I mean, we just went through that last year. A year ago in March, I had a lot of clients who called me that have been good clients, and they said, I just want to stop my withdrawals. And I said, what do you mean you want to stop your? Well, you know, I said, have you got money set aside to take care of your needs? You know, most of the clients had 30, 40, 50,000 sitting in a checking account at 60 and 70 and 80 years old. And they said, yeah, I don't want it. I just want to stop it. Well, as it turned out, you know what happened to the markets. It was a smart thing they did. And now they're triggering it at a higher rate. And they're living great because they said, you know, before the end of the year, well, let's get this thing cranked up again. We have to take out the, you know, the required minimum distribution. And so when you have to take out the required minimum by December, you have to do that. You can do it the last day of the year in Canada, and I think down here too. So you've got options. But if you're under control with your finances and you've got reserves and you're living your dream life, then go live your dream life, and you've done everything right. Not many people have. Unfortunately, not many people have. And so we still have to coach. I meet a lot of people in their latter years, and you know, they can get enough money that they put together, and we do the numbers and say, well, if you take 500 a month, that's going to supplement your pension plans and you can live the longest. And so it takes a lot of work to help people because they don't understand how money works, and they don't understand oftentimes what they need to do to make their nest egg last. And then, you know, they can't just come up with this idea, well, I think I need a new car, if they haven't planned for it, or I need to change houses unless they're downsizing, or I need to take a vacation and spend 10,000 when they don't have the money to do that. So we work a lot with people to just give them a sort of a common sense approach and to make sure that their retirement, they don't have to leave a lot of money. You know, you take your money up so you can take it down again. And that's the key thing in life, is that if you save money, you don't have to save money to be the richest guy in the country or gal, but you need to save money so you can take it down again. And then you need to know how long it'll last when you start to take it down. And I think that's the key thing, is who's going to help you figure that out. And there is a way to calculate all of that. There's the, you know, the accumulation phase, which we saw, and then there was the withdrawal phase. And so you just need to get a really good handle on that. And that's what we do. That's our work. That's what we do with people every single day.
Arlie, great job. We're going to finish up right now. Any last comment you want to make? We're about out of time, and then I'm going to close it out real quick.
Yeah, I would encourage everybody to get your family and your friends onto this kind of education. We're an educational business. It isn't getting lucky that's going to get you there, because generally if you get lucky, you get unlucky. I would say the biggest thing for everybody is to work with your family, work with your friends, and make sure they get around somebody that's honest, somebody that isn't a salesy person. I mean, people get sold stuff all the time, but if you have a pretty good knowledge of what happens in this world of, you know, accumulating wealth and then passing it to the next generation, you take it up, you're comfortable, take it down and leave what's rest. You can't spend all your money anyway, usually, and you'll leave some to your children. But if you've taught your children the basics, then they're way better off than just inheriting money. So I would suggest really plug into these seminars, plug into this education, and understand that whoever invited you here, you really need to work with them closely as a friend. I mean, our business is a relationship business, and family and friends are who our clients become. And so we're not in the business of trying to, you know, sell stuff. We really prefer never to do that. We would sooner educate and have you insist on becoming a client of ours. And I know that's the whole philosophy of the whole business. So relationships are keen. It's a hard time right now with a lot of people being locked up. We're excited about going forward. We think some of the greatest opportunities we've ever had lie in the future. So if you've got a great start, hang in there, get some help, get somebody you can trust, and make sure that you do the right things so you can have a great life. Thanks, Roy. Thanks, everybody, for sharing this great seminar, and we'll turn it back to you.
All right, very good, Arlie, and great nuggets to finish things off. And want to just a couple of closing thoughts. First off, I would encourage you got friends, family members, anybody like that, if you think this information was beneficial to you, it'd probably be beneficial to those people that are important to you. I would make sure that you'll let them know that and get that invite out to them. I also want you to reach out to whoever invited you or sent you this. They will be able to give you downloads of everything, sign you up for a lot of our different courses, that kind of thing. And with that being said, guys, hey, thanks for your attention. We're signing off. Thank you.